Ndamuko mama purabere. Ndamuko mama purabere. Tate ndamuko mama purabere. Tate ndamuko mama purabere. Tate ndamuko mama purabere. Tate ndamuko mama purabere. Manhero akanaka vana veZimbabwe. Vana veZimbabwe. Vana nyika manhero akanaka vana veZimbabwe. Nhasi pane vanhu iri pana timbokurukura shomanini. Pane vanhu iri pano. Tikaona anotanga kuti tobwi toziva kuti vanhu vapinda. Ndaona love and like yakandwa. Malikes ari kupinda. Saka aiwa muripo ndakuonai. Toda kutaura today. There was a debate probably today or yesterday or on Friday in British Parliament. Could be Friday or yesterday. There was a debate there where the members of Parliament in the United Kingdom or in Britain were talking about patriotic bill, where they said if there is no rule of law in Zimbabwe, then Zimbabwe must forget about joining Commonwealth, about joining the Commonwealth. No rule of law in our country. What does that mean? It means a lot to a country that is in dire need of support, a country that is in dire need of people to help. If you want help, if you are seeking help, you must ensure that your actions reflect a person looking for help. Haungati wewe ndio kuda kukumbira rubatsiro obva wa kudhanya aruda help ndiwe udhanya futi hapana chinobuda handiti maona. Saka tisatatanga kutaura about the patriotic bill versus the rule of law in our country. Regai timbotanga tatsemura dhirihora munashe zviri sei mwana wamai. Hanzi dhirihora iro vanogara mudhirihora rembanje, vanogara dhirihora iro vanogara dhirihora rembanje, vanogara vakomana, vanogara dhirihora rembanje, vanogara musatambe navo, vanogara dhirihora rembanje, vanogara dhirihora vakomana, dhirihora rembanje, vanogara dhirihora iro, vanogara dhirihora rembanje, vanogara dhirihora vakomana, dhirihora rembanje, vanogara dhirihora iro, vanogara dhirihora rembanje, vanogara vakomana, vanogara dhirihora rembanje, vanogara musatambe navo, vanogara dhirihora rembanje, vanogara dhirihora vakomana. Manhero akanaka vana veZimbabwe naye kusanganai nenyu 𝗍𝗵𝗁𝗁 ndolo Yuda. Hanzi taane mazuva tisingapapiwe mastar anaye. Hanzi patinenge tichiita mapresentations munenge muchibayawo tumastar muchikandawo tumastar kuti zviite sei zvifambirane naye. Asi song dhirihora ma1 ipei vakomana vatambe nayo mustudio. Definitely ndakambotaura pana someone akandinga kuinbox kwangu akati no, tichakwanisa kuitiite tigone kuirova titambe nayo pawaya. Tikambopromiswa namudhara wangu kunzi dzinogona kutambiswa pawaya futi. Vakati kana uchitoida totogona kutopinda totoirova izvozvi. Ndikati hey, pakaipa. Saka, let's hope with someone sekuru choko mazvita. Someone achango funga out, rakaiti tambe newaya. Tikande driora pa waya naye. Pakaipa. Ndichanzwa when my brother comes in September kuti ndo anokwenya magitari kuti mkomo baba mnini toita sei tokakwenya takamira sani atete nunu mainunu zviri sei album yacho ndakati kana tikakwanisa kuti irekodhu toisa kaike kuti azi ndakakanga kana achikaimba maimanje kana achitogona kukanda paalbum bacho kana kaita single yakanaka but ndiriwo ravakomana dhiriwo rarembanje vanogara mudhiriwo vakomana vanogara mudhiriwo dhiriwo rarembanje vanogara mudhiriwo usatambe navo vanogara mudhiriwo dhiriwo rarembanje gara mudhiriwo dhiriwo ravakomana hanzi daidzana iti tinzwe koma Jefferson Ndlovu hanzi zviri sei wezhira zviri kufamba handimona nhasi ndakarwa nguwani nguwani kune vamwe hanzi mapresentation anonakidza shepherd tinenge chikumbira kuti upfeke regalia saka ndatumirwa nguwani iyi yeyelo ndikati handisi kuzotaura ndatumirwa nani kune akandipromisa kuti ari kutumira bhareta reyelo saka bhareta reyelo harina kuzouya tichakangomirira asi pana someone angofila kuti no this hate inogona kuita mapresentations atiri kuda saka ndatumirwa ndaireceivawo manje saka ndati regai ndibva ndapfeka hanzosataure zita rangu ndingazoroyiwa kana kuti vanhu vanozotanga kuti tipewo nguwaniyo ndikutaura kuti ayo nguwani iyi ndakatengerwawo naningi vanhu vanenge vakudawo nguwani iyoyo saka hanzi ayo shepherd unongonyarira chete pfeka nguwani uchita mapresentations because hanzi mudhara ndokufarira ndikati mazvita vana vezimbabwe saka tacheneswa handi muri kuona paplatform pedu patinenge ichitaura what is happening in our country in Zimbabwe at this juncture chii chiri kuitika munyika medu. So you have seen that last week today is Sunday, so last week the cabinet or the parliament, let me say the cabinet of Zimbabwe approved a patriotic bill. What does that mean to the opposition? What does that mean to the people of Zimbabwe? That patriotic bill, it's not good news, ladies and gentlemen. It's not a good news because according to the reports or reports that are reaching us this morning, it's like violations of the new law is punishable up to 20 years in jail. So violation of this patriotic bill, it makes sure that you can serve up to 20 years in prison. The Zimbabwe government has seen it fit to try and stamp, to try and clamp down criticism. Anzuka repa ku Zimbabwe, if you rape someone, you are sent to prison for 9 years or less. If you commit murder, most of the time, 5 years or less, if you cannot now put a death sentence. If you kind of a robbery, unotongwa 2 years or less. But if you criticize your government, you go to prison for 20 years for criticizing your government. And ndenge ndiri pa video ndiri mabla 10 ipapo zvakawa mamkomaida ndisoterewo shet ndizorowawo matragi muchando pakaipa ndichataura nezvazvo because vanhu vazhinji vari chataura nezvazvo nyaya dzematracks. I will talk about it. So according to Zimbabwe or ZANU-PF government, if you criticize the government, you serve 20 years in prison. If you don't criticize the government, if you rape someone, you rape a toddler, you rape a girl, you rape someone, or whatever crime you commit in that country, you serve up to 5 years, 2 years, 6 months for robbery, 2 years for robbery, 5 years for fraud. but criticize your government, you go to prison for 20 years. As mdara wangu magadi kuchando. Takasimba mkomarishi. Ziri kufamba here. So the Criminal Law Code Amendment Bill, this is nicknamed or widely known as Patriotic Bill. It contains a clause that criminalizes willfully damaging the sovereignty and the national interests of Zimbabwe. That means in code or the Criminal Law Code Amendment Bill, which is nicknamed Patriotic Bill, there is a clause there where if you willfully damage the sovereignty and the national interests of the country of Zimbabwe, you are likely to be you will be sentenced to 20 years imprisonment. If you rape someone, Emerson Mnangagwa will give you amnesty. If you kill someone, Emerson, and you are sentenced to 9 years imprisonment, Mnangagwa will give you a pardon. But if you criticize your government, because this willfully damaging the sovereignty, that means you know the government is doing something wrong, and you need to criticize that government. If you go on to criticize that government, you are sentenced to 20 years imprisonment. Look, recently we had Honorable Mahere, or 𝗶𝗶𝗁 spokesperson Mahere, who went to Geneva, where she spoke about the ordeal in the hands of ZANU-PF government. And when she went back, she was under attack from all ZANU-PF quarters who were calling for her incarceration, to say, why did you go there to tell the world that you were arrested, that you were taken without a pant, you were locked up and you were sent to 𝗀𝗏 maximum prison, where criminals, hardcore criminals are sent. So ZANU-PF didn't want her to go and say that. But they actually arrested Honorable Mahere. They actually put him in prison. But they are ashamed. They are ashamed if someone stand and say whatever she went through. We saw the likes of Justina Mkoko being abducted from her house in Norton. She was nude, she was naked. And she was taken from that house under armed intelligence agencies. And she is not allowed by Zimbabwean law to tell the world how she was arrested. Then they say that will damage the sovereignty of the country. So ZANU-PF willfully do things that damage the sovereignty of the country, but they don't want the Zimbabweans to talk about their experiences in the hands of ZANU-PF. This is when they sat down and crafted this terrible new law. It's terrible new law, very terrible new law, where you will be sent to prison for 20 years for telling the world that, look, I've been arrested, I've been tortured, I've been almost killed by Zimbabwe government. Then they, if they find you, if you say that, then they will come arrest you and put you in prison for saying that for 20 years. Because they are saying you will be damaging the sovereignty of the country. So this is where the international community is concerned, that there is no rule of law in Zimbabwe, where people are abducted, where people are tortured, where people are beaten and harassed. But ZANU-PF don't want people to say this to the world, that look, imba yangu yakapiswa, avadi kuzvitaurwa. Ukangotaura kuti wakapisirwa imba, that is an offense in Zimbabwe. You'll be sentenced to 20 years in prison. Ukanoripota kuti ndabirwa motikari yangu, mbavha ikabatwa, inosentencwa 5 years in prison. But iwe ukataura ndapisirwa imba yangu, ipapo ZANU-PF government will sentence you to 20 years in prison. So there is no rule of law in our country. The law it was passed late on Wednesday, was designed to punish citizens. It was designed to punish the civil society organizations and designed to punish political adversaries of the ruling party, ZANU-PF. It has raised fears now that the government could launch a crackdown on dissent ahead of the general election that is about to come on August 23, where Mnangagwa will be seeking a third term. Those people who are saying Mnangagwa is seeking for a second term, that is not true. Mnangagwa is seeking for a third term. Remember, our constitution says, if you finish the term of the current president, if he is incapacitated in whatsoever or removed from power, and you complete his term, that will be your first term. Then you go into an election. If you are elected, that will be your second term. So Mnangagwa is going for a third term. If you say second term, that is not correct. Because he finished the Mugabe term before. If he was a clever gentleman, he shouldn't have finished the Mugabe's term. They should have let an interim board run the country until next election, so that he start with his first election. But unfortunately, that was his first term. He is now in finishing his second term and is seeking re-election for a third term. Azimdara mauya nenyaya chayepanyaya kunzi ukapikisa hurumende yemuno muZimbabwe unopika 20 days chokwadi. That's true. Mukoma Shapiro zviri sei batsirai zviri kufamba here chengo zviri sei mwana wamai. So this is batsirai chengo chengo uzouya kuinbox kana ndapedza presentation, or else you send me your number inbox, then pane zvandirotaura newe. Saka you see now General akayemba, it's ZANU-PF people avazive kuti hakuna chisingaperi chinoshura varume. So now if you criticize your government, you'll be sentenced to 20 years imprisonment according to the new draconian law which has removed the rule of law in our country. Claudius Zirise Baba Majon Zurufambair. So this Mnangagwa is trying to use or utilize this law to cramp down dissent voices or crack down on dissent ahead of the August 2023 elections. Lawyers, Mnangagwa is bouting with a 45-year-old lawyer and a pastor who is known as Nelson Chamisa, who leads the newly formed 𝗶𝗶𝗁 or Citizens Coalition for Change, a political party that has been newly formed. He's the contender. So 𝗶𝗶𝗁 spokesperson even Mahere tried to tell the people of Zimbabwe and the world that this law is a very dangerous law. It's a very dangerous law. It is probably a law in our country after death sentence. This is the second draconian law in our country. On death sentence, iwewe ukauraya munhu ukasungwa ukatongwa kuenda kujeri vanokutonga kana death sentence or life imprisonment. So 20 years is equivalent to life imprisonment just for criticizing your government. Mkoma Shapiro zviri sei Skumbuzo zviri kufamba here Mtons zviri kufamba here. So ZANU-PF has reduced Zimbabwe, a great nation, into an outpost of tyranny. This is according to Mahere, according to me as well, right? That ZANU-PF has reduced once a great nation in an outpost of tyranny. This is ZANU-PF. So Zimbabwe, if you look at Zimbabwe, freedoms are now threatened by this terrible new law. And you wonder why the cabinet of Zimbabwe would allow that type of bill to sail through, right? So that means there will be an amendment to the criminal code, and the cabinet has approved that on Wednesday to say, look, they will impose stiffer penalties for those who campaign against the country through private correspondence with the foreign governments and harm national interests. So if you look at what Zimbabweans think, Zimbabwe government thinks if I write a letter to the international community, but Zimbabwe is not an island. Zimbabwe is not a country that does not live in harmony with other countries. It is a global family. If you look at Zimbabwe, it is a United Nations child. It belongs to United Nations. It belongs to SADC. It belongs to other African National Union. And recently, Mnangagwa went, since he came to power in 2017, he said to the people of Zimbabwe, you will follow a re-engagement mantra that he wants Zimbabwe to be readmitted into the Commonwealth. So for Zimbabwe to be readmitted into the Commonwealth, they need to abide by the laws of the Commonwealth. Commonwealth is a club of former British colonies, and they've got some rules and regulations that they follow. One of it is the rule of law. If a country has got no rule of law, Commonwealth is not obliged to readmit that country. And Zimbabwe's readmittance into Commonwealth as a re-engagement mantra, it won't come anytime soon, as long as they continue to pass on such laws. Because if they become members of the Commonwealth, if we are opposition and we feel that this is not right, we can write a letter or we can do a correspondence with the Commonwealth to say, look, your member, we are your member. We are the opposition, of course, but we are Zimbabweans. We are your member. Then if this is happening, why can't you intervene as a club to stop this? By so doing, Zimbabwe will think its sovereignty powers are interfered with, of which we are not interfering with any sovereignty powers of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe can make its own laws, but their laws must be in line with the global families where they belong. They want to be members of the Commonwealth. Nobody from the opposition forced ZANU-PF to go into re-engagement and for Zimbabwe to become a member of the Commonwealth. It's Mnangagwa and his colleagues who said, oh, we are following the re-engagement mantra, and they wanted to re-engage the British so that they can be members of that club which is formally ruled by the British laws. You understand? So they say, if you go to Britain, where Mnangagwa goes for re-engagement, if you go there to try and say, look, we are former Commonwealth members, but in our country there are unfair laws that our country is exercising, and you want to readmit it in Commonwealth. If you say that is don't readmit Zimbabwe, they are saying you are harming national interests. So if you look at last time, remember, I made a presentation about Zimbabweans who came to the United Kingdom. When Zimbabweans were coming to this country did not require a visa for you. You just flew from Zimbabwe, from Harare, straight into England without a visa. And then they'll ask you how long you're going to stay. You can say, I'm going to stay for 6 months. I'm going to stay for 3 months. Then they'll stamp a free visa on your passport to say, oh, welcome to England, Shepherd. You're going to stay for 6 months. Wouya munomu compare mararamira waita ku Zimbabwe. A lot of people did not go back home. As a result, people said, okay, fine. If I fail to go back home, what do I need? I need to claim asylum to live legally in this country. A lot of people, Zimbabweans, went through the asylum process where they told the British government all sorts of stories that we've run away from Zimbabwe because of ZANU-PF. My family was attacked, I was tortured, our house was burned, my family is all sorts of stories. If Home Office has to open these stories to the world, remember, there are WikiLeaks, this and that. One day, these stories will be used, will be published. You won't be surprised that the stories will be published. And you'll be shocked what ZANU-PF supporters said to the Home Office for them to be granted asylum in this country. You will be shocked. You will be shocked. That, oh, this is ZANU-PF person, this is ZANU-PF supporter, this is ZANU-PF minister, said this to the Home Office so that they can be granted asylum in the United Kingdom. One day, those claims will be published in books or what for the British, for the benefit of the British literature. Jiri say, Baba Musa, as you, so what they're saying is, I always tell people that those ZANU-PF supporters in the UK, with all the stories that they spoke about to the Home Office, damaged Zimbabwe more than actual victims of that country. I am a victim of the Zimbabwe government. I am a victim of ZANU-PF. Whatever I said to the Home Office is exactly what happened to me. But to those ZANU-PF supporters, whatever they said to the Home Office, whether true or false, that's not true. They said false, they created false stories to the Home Office so that they can be granted asylum in this country. And that they contributed to the damage of their sovereignty. Because obvious, the Home Office and the British government will utilize those stories to make sure that they give informed decisions about how Zimbabwe is like. You understand? So, as a result, if foreign governments interfere in Zimbabwe because they are affected by the influx of refugees from that country, then they need to say something. If they say something, then your country cries, Zimbabwe will cry. Our sovereignty is being interfered with. Our power to make laws is being interfered with. The international community do not want us to make laws for our country, which is not true. But it's because of such stories which were told to the Home Office. It's not in England, even in America. If you go to Australia, Canada, ZANU-PF supporters like Wana Chonzani Chimpana Chima Obi Cheche, Jones Msara, Chiru Canada Cheche. Obvious for him to live as a refugee there. He had some stories to tell to the Canadian immigration. You understand? So, a lot of things have been done. Zimbabwe has been damaged by ZANU-PF people. ZANU-PF people themselves damaged Zimbabwe. But the actual victims of ZANU-PF today, they are plained in Zimbabwe. Most of them can't even walk. They've got their arms amputated, the mouth cut, nose cut, ears cut. You see, they are like maimed by ZANU-PF, who are actual victims of this ZANU-PF. If you count the victims of ZANU-PF who are abroad, who ran away from ZANU-PF brutality, they are just a few. But the stories that they created to the immigration, that immigration utilizes to make decisions on how to deal with Zimbabwe, they are horrific. You understand? So, now, there is a law. There is a law, a draconian law, that even affect those ZANU-PF people who come to seek asylum in these countries. Because if you look at the acting minister of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services in Zimbabwe, 𝗍𝗂𝗏 Muswere, standing in for Minister Monica Mutsvangwa, said after the cabinet meeting, that the cabinet considered and approved the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Amendment Bill 2022, presented by the Minister of Justice, Legal and Parliamentary Affairs, 𝗍𝗂𝗏, in his capacity as chairman of the Cabinet Committee for Legislation. The bill enhanced the provisions of the Criminal Law Code in the matters relating to the country's sovereignty through the criminalization of conduct that undermine Zimbabwe's sovereignty, dignity, independence, and the national interest. This is what we call patriotic bill. The bill also provides for an amendment sentence. I don't know whether this amendment is sentence or what. I'm not sure about this, but this is the patriotic, which is a terrible law, which is a patriotic bill, the Criminal Law Code Amendment Bill, widely known as the Patriotic Bill. This bill has criminalized criticism of Zimbabwe government. If you criticize Zimbabwe government today, you will be sent to prison because they don't want you to criticize Emmerson Mnangagwa. So the parliament, it outlawed the criticism of the government. Imagine, these are the people you vote into office. This is why I am saying 2023 elections, it must be decisive. You must, guys, know the type of members of parliament you are going to vote into parliament. You be decisive. Because these people we are voting, imagine they are letting these bills sail through. They are outlawing criticism of the government ahead of this election. We have got a crucial presidential and parliamentary elections coming in August. And the people you elected into parliament are the people who are now violating your rights. They are not acting according to your aspirations. Because when you vote a member of parliament, you want that member of parliament to go and represent you in parliament. If he goes to parliament and forget about representing you and look at the laws that oppress you, then that is not a good member of parliament. So what do we need to do? We need to make crucial decisions right now who to vote for. Because you cannot vote for someone who approves a law that punishes you. What crime did you commit? You are not allowed to see hurumende kana iri hurumende yembavha. You are not allowed to kutaura kuti hurumende ende yembavha. Kana vachiba ma-ministers ari kuiswa naMnangagwa, you are not allowed kuti utaura kuti minister ari kuba. You will be punished by being sentenced to 20 years, by up to 20 years imprisonment. You will go to jail for 20 years for criticizing kuti Mnangagwa ari kuba, for criticizing kuti 𝗿𝗂𝗶𝗵 ari kuba, for criticizing kuti 𝗀𝗶𝗵𝗵 ari kunyenga vana. You will be sent to prison for 20 years. So there is no rule of law in our country. There is no rule of law. So the Criminal Law Code Amendment Bill, as I've stated earlier on, that is nicknamed Patriotic Bill, it contains a clause that criminalizes willful damaging of the sovereignty and the national interest of the country. Saka vandaura kuti iwewe ukataura kuti ningi uya ari kuba, then zvinobuda internationally, ubva zvanzi uya hatimudi imbavha, unobva ukangobatwa chete, you go to prison for 20 years. And I'm sure Zimbo tadzidza vanhu vekuisa public office, dangerous of definitely Mkomariji. Zimbabweans must learn now. Such type of bills must be a cornerstone of your decision. When you are making a decision who to vote for into parliament, don't vote those candidates who are brought by ZANU-PF. Most of them, if they go there, they are not allowed to think for themselves. They are not allowed to think. They go straight into a block to say, if this is ZANU-PF block, you cannot break it. When they want to oppress you, they fall on you. And right now, mtemo wakadaiso, hakuna munhu anoda kutongwa nemutemo wakadaiso muZimbabwe. Even munhu weZANU-PF chaiche, hakuna anoda mutemo wakadai. Ukuti iwewe ukada kukriticize kuti vaMnangagwa muri kuba, unobva wanzi iwewe wakriticize hurumende, wadamage hurumende, 20 years in prison. Zvinorwadza kuti munhu ari kuisa mutemo ari kuprotectwa wacho nemutemo iye is an 80-year-old man who is contesting a 45-year-old man. 45-year-old man is a pastor. Asingamboita allow mutemo yakadai kuti idzvanyirire vanhu. Is a lawyer who knows the laws, that this is oppressive. We should not oppress the people of Zimbabwe. Makupanishirwa kuti take part in elections. If you take part in an election, you are now being punished. And the way the government is punishing you is approving such bills which oppress you. And very stupid people vari kuzanonzwa kuti musangano wakasimba kumasero vachienda vachinovhotera ZANU-PF iri kuisa mutemo yekuti haukosore. Haukosore. Ukaita mweya panapa ukanzi 20 years in prison. And this is damaging. This law, draconian law, is damaging on its own. Damaging on its own. And so Zimbabweans, as we are going to these pools, your mission, my mission, our mission as a country is to make sure that these people who allowed this law to pass must not be voted back into parliament. These are very dangerous members of parliament. Very dangerous. These are the people you don't even want near you. We don't want such type of people. Because definitely your mission now is to win Zimbabwe for change. And if you continue to vote such such idiots. You continue to vote such people in parliament. When you're going to vote such a law, then you are oppressing yourself. You are killing yourself. Because you are not allowed, you don't have any freedom of speech anymore. As chose, as you own, patriotic is unpatriotic. This law is unpatriotic, Mgoma Chichi. Very unpatriotic. And more, even ZANU-PF spokesperson Jaja, Varukuramba could comment on it. Then unozona an ordinary Zimbabwean anema power to voting ZANU-PF member of parliament arikuna approve mutemo nokuzvanyirira. This law oppresses you. This law oppresses your children, because this is a draconian patriotic bill. This is a draconian patriotic bill. Why is it being passed ahead of elections? Then you are going to criticize ZANU-PF. Saka, ladies and gentlemen, you are the Zimbabweans. You've got only one X, and you don't need to waste it to vote ZANU-PF. You never put your X on ZANU-PF. Because, understand guys, say, you have got only one X for this election. And that X on presidential candidate must go on 𝗶𝗶𝗁 on Nelson Chamisa. If you want these laws repealed, gain freedom yako. You've got, don't waste your X. You've got one X, which you should never waste on putting it on ZANU-PF. You will be alone in the ballot box. Akuna chinokuona, ndosaka richinzi secret ballot paper, secret ballot box, secret voting. Akuna anokuona. Take your X, put it on Chamisa, fold. Saka winzi, fold the paper rako risaoneke unzwa votera ani. Wena unokanda box. Wotoziva ndapedza ndazvisunungura. Set yourself free. Set yourself free. Make your X talk. Let your X speak. Let your X set you free. 2023, August 2023. This is when we are going to set yourself free. You've got only one X. You don't need to waste it. Zvakafana kuti uri muhondo iwewe wasarwa nenyere mbiri. Yaunoziva kuti nyere mbiri idzi ndikaridza panapa let those people vakatanga kundiridzira ine handisina chekudzosera fire nacho. Ndofa sehuku pano. Unochengetedza nyere dzako dziri mbiri. Unonopinda nadzo paunozofungidzira kuti panapa ndikarova uyo ndikunokwanisa kuwana icho. Ndopatasvika. Wasvika pekuti pane 1 century. Ukarova 1 century wakutonobata nyere, watone saga renyere kuti kana vakakunzwa uchalodha ucharovana nawo zvekurovana nawo zviya. Pane 1 century. Patasvika apa, you've got only 1 century who's watching you, and you are at advantage because you have seen him first. Zvaita ZANU-PF, zvaita kuti uone your enemy first. Who is your enemy? And ZANU-PF as a political party is your enemy. Unenyere wani yo yasara. Unofanirwa kunyaso ema musoro kuti ukwanise kusvikira nyere dzakawanda. Then you defend yourself. Patasvika is crucial, ladies and gentlemen. It's crucial. It's crucial. Because now, Mnangagwa is expected to sign it into law. Once he sign it into law, that means you will never criticize him. Opposition party, opposition members of parliament, they will never oppose him. And this draconian law, once passed, it will hang you. 20 years in prison, kututaura kuti munhu aba, obva 20 years in jail. That is not a joke. Kana chitaura 20 years in jail, vanhu vasati vapinda mujeri, kana vasati vambovharirwa, they don't understand this. They think it's a joke. A prison is not a joke at all. It's not a walk in the park, a prison. So for you to spend 20 years, zekuti wakriticize hurumende, azvibude. Iwe only 1x, guys. 1x. Utilize 1x. Don't waste your X. And this bill is an amendment to the criminal or to the codified. Code here. It's an amendment to the code which criminalizes fundamental freedoms. My rights or freedom of speech is criminalized. Those fundamental rights associated with assembly are criminalized. Associated with speech of any citizen who holds meetings with the foreign government through diplomats and other representatives. If you are found, you will be criminalized. You will be sent to prison. And more. Zvakafanana nekuti vana President Nelson Chamisa as opposition vanombodaidzwa kune dzimwe nyika unana Belgium kupi vakaenda ikoko kunoita ma meetings nevanhu ivavo vari ve opposition vachingodzoka 20 years mujeri. That means ZANU-PF aidi anyone who will pledge to assist Zimbabwe from outside the country. You will be imprisoned. And more. Saka, the sad story is this bill was passed by Parliament last Wednesday. And ZANU-PF ruling, or the ruling party, ZANU-PF's member of Parliament, were the major supporters of this oppressive or draconian law. So we are going into an election fully aware that those people are the people who voted the draconian law. And if you see yourself voting for ZANU-PF member of Parliament, you are a moron. You are a stupid person. Because you cannot go and say, iwe wakanaka, iye achitaura kuti iwe haufaniri kuungana uchitaura nezvematongerwo enyika. Iwe haufaniri kuungana uchitaura nezvekutongwa kwako. You are not allowed to talk. You are not allowed any freedom of speech. Those are your rights enshrined in the Constitution. But you are not allowed to exercise them. If you try to exercise them, then you will be sentenced to 20 years in prison. And a very stupid Zimbabwean will go ahead to vote for that ZANU-PF person. Nuko tatotadza kuziva kuti wakazvarwa naamai here. Una amai vakakutakura 29 months here. Vakaenda kuchipatara vakadzigomera vachigomera mai vako kuti kusvika wazvarwa. Kuti iwewe pauri kufamba mai vako vakakuona vane nhoroondo here yekurwadziwa nepamiri pako nemusi wawakazvarwa. Bozi ndaive kuLabour, vana vangu vese vakazvarwa ndirimo muLabour nemukadzi wangu kunze kwemwana wangu wekutanga. Ndakaona mukadzi wangu achena miromo kuti mpu kutange munhu adya mascones. Manese ekuZimbabwe airova vakasiyana nekunoona naUK. ekuZimbabwe vanenge vachikwatura mbama. Uda kuuraya mwana, wadzvanyirira mwana, gomera kwatu. Anditi vanenge vari mai vako vachikuzvara vachikwaturwa kudaro kuti ubude iwewe. Wozobuda kuti urambe ufe uchitambura. Ufe uchinzi nezano haufaniri kuti criticize. Haufaniri kutaura zvakashata zvatinoita kana tikaba, haufaniri kutaura kuba kwedu. As a result, you will be sentenced to 20 years in prison kuti wataura kuti ZANU-PF iri kuba kana kuti Mnangagwa ari kuba. Saka kana takuenda kuma elections, we know who voted for that draconian bill. Because that draconian bill, it was voted by ZANU-PF who enjoy a 2/3 majority. And it just required 2/3 majority for them to pass through. And they are utilizing their majority in parliament to pass on those draconian bills. And a stupid voter will still go and vote for that same person who passed this draconian law. Saka zvaakuda kuti vanhu veZimbabwe timuke chete. Zvazvakudimanda 23 akusi kure. 23 August elections aripo kwasara 1 month. This is June, July wese aripo for you to make a decision. Anzi kubarirwa kuvenga nekutengesa nyika saYuda. Inini atengese nyika Eustace. I love my country. You know, I do lives on Facebook every day discussing how to make Zimbabwe better. You have never seen even Mnangagwa doing what I do on daily basis. Not even one person in ZANU-PF has ever done what I do on daily basis. Every day I take 1 to 3 hours talking about Zimbabwe. How can we better our country? If there is a patriotic Zimbabwe in this world, I am the most patriotic person, the most patriotic Zimbabwean. Even Nicky Mangwana does not do what I do as an information secretary. I am the only Zimbabwean in Zimbabwe. I'm the only Zimbabwean and a Zimbabwe at heart. Every single day I come live on Facebook. I talk about my country. How can we better our living? I'm the voice of the voiceless. Those who can't afford. You understand? I love my country. This is why I talk much about how best can we develop Zimbabwe. I'm talking today about a draconian law that even you, Eustace yourself, you never spoke about against it. But you really know the impact of that draconian law. It removes the rule of law in our country. Zimbabwe will never be governable when there is no rule of law. And ZANU-PF has removed the rule of law. But surprisingly, they come and cry that they want to be readmitted in Commonwealth. This is why I am telling you, look, I am giving ZANU-PF hints that drop such draconian laws, be readmitted into Commonwealth, develop your country. Tine mari dziriko Commonwealth zekuti nhasi tikapinda Zimbabwe inopiwa. Murogadzira road, mura motorway, tokupai mari, ende munogadzira motorway. Pakaitwa 𝗀𝗲𝗄𝗲 muZimbabwe, I don't know how old you were, Eustace. When Zimbabwe had 𝗀𝗲𝗄𝗲. Ndopakaya mazibhaika aya, mazimotikari emapurisa aya, mazibenzi hobo. Kwakauya hobo zvinhu. Bozi motikari ndo dzaitambira vaenzi. Nemoyo muchena. Vachienda mahotera vachiita sei, vachigadwa vakada sei. Dai wakaona pakaitwa 𝗀𝗲𝗄𝗲 muZimbabwe. I don't know how old you were when we had 𝗀𝗲𝗄𝗲 in Zimbabwe. That Commonwealth meeting. That benefited Zimbabwe a lot. So, I am the most patriotic Zimbabwean. I spend 3-4 hours every day talking about my country. There is no one in that country who has ever spent 4 hours talking about Zimbabwe. I do it. I do it. Every single day created by God, I talk about Zimbabwe. How to develop our country. Right now, I'm telling ZANU-PF people to drop that draconian law. It does not help the country. You cannot oppress Zimbabweans, remove their rights or freedom to assemble, freedom of speech, and you think you can develop a country by oppressing Zimbabweans. This is why I am here, Eustace, on daily basis to talk about Zimbabwe, because I love my country. You've never done it before. What I do, you can't do it. Understand? So I'm the most patriotic Zimbabwean. Because if you look at even 𝗵𝗵𝗁𝗁, he came to say Parliament should retain its stance and the position as a chest upholder and the protector of democratic values. So this is why exactly what I'm telling you here. That if you've got a parliament must be an upholder and the protector of democratic values. Parliament must not be seen as stampeding the democratic values of a country. And you on. So passing of such draconian rules should never be an agenda of parliament. Parliament is comprised of people who were elected by the masses to be representatives. Remember, I was talking about representatives of people in parliament. Because we cannot, you cannot take 15 million into parliament, no. But we have got representatives we elect to go and say what we want, our aspirations, what we expect our government to do for us, and what we need to be done. So we send one delegate to parliament. We don't go as 15 million people. If we do that, I tongeke Zimbabwe yacho hakuna chinobuda parliament. But now, if you are sending your representative from let's say, 𝗍𝗂𝗍𝗶𝗁 to go into parliament, to go and approve a draconian law against the people who sent him there, then that member of parliament is serving no purpose. You cannot continue to send such type of person to represent you. Eustace, why I am patriotic, why I am the most patriotic Zimbabwean, because I take my time 3 hours or 4 hours every day. Out of 24 hours a day, I take 4 hours to talk about Zimbabwe. Honestly, all those in ZANU-PF, my ZANU-PF members of parliament, Ese Ngoma John Cloud, must never be retained in parliament. If all Zimbabweans can hear me, Mkoma Masimba D. Falcon, how are you, man? Kana maZimbabweans esari pasi rese vari muZimbabwe vachindinzwa, musavhotera vanhu maparliamentarians anga arimo ese ZANU-PF. Musatombovhotera aritenwa neZANU kunzi avhoterwe. Don't vote that person. Kunyanga ari weconstituency yenyu ichinzi stronghold yeZANU-PF, mukana mapuwa MP anga ari muparliament weZANU, musafa makavhotera munhu iyeye, because munhu iyeye muvengi wenyu. Kunyangwe muri veZANU-PF, munhu iyeye muvengi wenyu, musafe makamuvhotera. Andona, because ungaisa mutemo wekuti vanhu havabvumirwe kutaura. Vanhu vakataura sungai mukande kujeri 20 years. That's draconian. Saka tiri kutaura tichiti parliament inofana kuprotecta democratic values of the people of Zimbabwe. Unofana kuti uchipinda muparliament wofila kuti ya muno ndo mune safety yangu. Unoziva kuti munhu anofana kuti akapara mhosva panzapa akamhanya kunopinda muparliament to seek refugee, anofana kunoprotectwa neparliament. Kwete kunosvika parliament yotora tsvimbo bvati pondai munhu bo. Parliament yeZimbabwe muri kuelecta marepresentative vari kukupondai muchirohwa musoro muchingoti ndiye munhu ari right here, rohwa musoro achikubaya nepfumo kuti ndiye munhu ari right here. Saka vanhu veZimbabwe ngatimukei, let's open our eyes, mind, tizive pekuvhotera. Hanzi kana wasarudzwa nevanhu, forget about your part, you stand for the nation. Exactly. So these guys now, they do it as a block, ZANU-PF block. Vachiwira vanhu vakavhotera vachivatswanya. Andimona. Saka they cannot differentiate kuti iwe uri munhu kana wanga uri munhu we-CCC, wakunzi waameya weHarare, hausiri meya we-CCC, waameya wevanhu vese varimo. Ndo inonzi democracy iyoyo. Yekuti vamwe havakude, vamwe vanokuda, asi kana wavapo wakusevha anokuda neasingakude. Andini manzwa. Ndo zviri kutaurwa namukoma Sikumbuzo panapa. So laws like the Patriotic Act are simply and falsely couched as progressive, yet they contain within them the vestiges of repressive and authoritarian stifling of democratic dissent. Kudzvanyirira vanhu, kudzvanyirira mutemo, kudzvanyirira democratic values. Ekuti haubvumirwe kutaura, haubvumirwe kuita sei. As Zimbabwe is heading towards a new general election on the 23rd of this year, please, vanhu veZimbabwe, ndakumbirisisa. Kana ku area kwenyu kune munhu weZANU-PF ari kuiswa, akanga ari muparliament, musafa makamuvhotera. Ndati nini, X wako una X1. Une nyere 1 yasara muhondo. Nyere iyoyo haitambiswe. Ndo inopadu usurvive nyere iyoyo. Una X1 asara mukurarama kwako. X iyeyo kanotadza pekumuisa, uchafa uri rombe. Unofa uchidyiwa nemakarwe. Unofa uchidyiwa nemagora. Unofa nenzara, unofa usina chaunacho. Unenge uchazoverengwa muhistory kunzi the poverty stricken Zimbabweans. Because uchafa nepoverty. Poverty is a disease that will kill you. So you only have one X. You do not need to waste that X to vote ZANU-PF. Your X is crucial. Anyone who was in ZANU-PF who ensured that this draconian law is passed through the parliament and is now signed into law, where you will be sentenced to 20 years for saying ZANU-PF ikuba. Please don't ever vote that person again. That person is your enemy. Imbandu yako mandu. So the patriotic bill, according to Veritas, a legal monitoring organization in Zimbabwe, some of the bill's provisions state that a Zimbabwean could face up to 10 years in prison if they engage in talks with hostile nations about sanctions on a trade boycott. Tine ma-sanctions akaiswa ku Zimbabwe, targeted sanctions on those people killing people. Unogona kuvunzwa iwewe sa shepherd yuda. Mamirida situation yeku Zimbabwe rumaona sei Shapiro. How about munanga kwa ma-sanctions tomvisa here? Obvious. No, because so far there is no change in Zimbabwe that can warrant removal of those on targeted sanctions. You saw recently when 𝗶𝗶𝗁 held a rally, these people will come with machetes and kill innocent people, bystanders, people watching, people just standing there listening to the address of the opposition president. These guys, they come with machetes and they attack them. They kill people. So if you are asked that, do you want sanctions against Owen 𝗂𝗎𝗂 removed? Honestly, would you agree to say yes, remove them? Because his 𝗂𝗎𝗂, Owen is not going to stop macheting you. He's not going to stop killing you. Even he's on sanctions or not on sanctions. He was not on sanctions. He went on to create a situation which resulted in him added on sanctions. Driving youth militias with machetes to kill innocent people, then give them accommodation, beer and drugs. Then today you are asked, you want Owen 𝗂𝗎𝗂 to be taken off sanctions list, then you say yes. You'll be stupid. Because totally, once it's removed, it will be worse than what you witnessed. So, if you are asked to say, can we lift sanctions against the targeted Zimbabweans? Obvious, if you are a Zimbabwean, fully aware of what is happening in your country, the answer is no. When you say no, then they will arrest you for saying no. Zimbabwe will put you in prison for 10 years. So under this bill again, if sanctions are enacted by nations based on advice from Zimbabwean citizens, can be revoked. If the person is a citizen by registration or a dual citizen, that means if you have got dual citizenship, you say no, sanctions must stay on Zimbabwe, your dual citizenship will be revoked in Zimbabwe. It will be revoked. Vanokutorera kuva muZimbabwe kwako kuti you are no longer a Zimbabwean. Indofunga inini ndakatotorerwa kudhara. Ndofunga inini ka inini handisiri citizen of Zimbabwe. Ndichatoita find out kuti ndichiri muZimbabwe ere. Because inini ndotaura zvinhu zvokuti Zimbabwe inake. But hurumende inorwadziwa nezvandotaura. Unonzwa wako yapana kuti musatanyoko. Haufa wakatsika muZimbabwe iwewe. Yo katsika muZimbabwe tinokura. Kamubvunza kuti rani kana tsika muZimbabwe ukadondourayirechi. Hanzi sei uchitaura iwewe kuti Owen 𝗂𝗎𝗂 hafana kuuraya vanhu. Rega auraye vanhu, who are you? You understand? Saka atingatonge nyika irano tichidaro. Airano tichidaro. So there is a provision of cancellation of residential rights if the convicted person is a permanent resident of Zimbabwe. They may even lose their voting rights for 5 or to 15 years. Kana convicted. They may also be banned from holding public office for the same period. Kuti ukangotorwa ukakandwa ujeri nekuti wati ZANU-PF iri kuba, hauchabvumirwi kuvota for 15 years. Guys, honestly, if you have got a member of parliament, Angari parliament, who approved this, don't vote that person again. Ask ZANU-PF to give you a different candidate, not the same candidates that were in parliament. Ari kuvota kuti iwewe ukati ZANU-PF iri kuba ukasungwa unoenda kujeri for 15 years, for 10 years. Kana waenda kujeri for 10 years ukabuda imomo hauchabvumirwi kuvota for the next 15 years. Mtemo yakaita se, come on Eustace. This is your political party ZANU-PF that approved this bill. Andini murunzo. hanzi hauzobvumirwi kana kuita kana kansela kana kuita chii nenyaya yekuti wakataura kuti July moyo ari kuba. So everything that I've said here, ZANU-PF, the above speaks to the opposition, which ZANU-PF is accused of for encouraging sanctions against the country. Because if you look at the mission and the intention of this draconian law was to try and make sure that the opposition has got no say in the running of the country. And this was designed to silence the opposition in our country. Opposition activists are invited from time to time to international platforms to speak about the situation back home. You saw Mahere speaking about the situation she went through. You saw 𝗍𝗂𝗶𝗁𝗂 cancer machines. That did not go well with the ZANU-PF people who felt that 𝗂𝗶𝗁𝗂 must be arrested and incarcerated for saying that. They don't care, these people. And it more. So such gatherings are fertile ground for the government to prosecute them. If you are invited internationally to go and speak on the situation or on the ground back in Zimbabwe, if you go back to that country, you'll be prosecuted. As have you forgotten, I asked for that law to be considered myself. Is not what you are trying to say. You of all people knows why that law is being implemented. So this is why I am asking you, Eustace, that honestly, if Eustace, you are invited to go and talk about the state of affairs at patriotic hospital, if you say we don't have a cancer machine, people are dying undiagnosed of cancer, then if you go back to Zimbabwe, the government will prosecute you for that. And you guys are happy to say, oh, that is now is a protection. Zimbabwe is protected. Honestly. Be yourselves, guys. Be yourselves. Musade kufungirwa. Fungai mega. Kuti zvatiri kusapota izvi. Zvine musoro here. Andimona. In so far as the new crime penalizes the consideration, planning or implementation of sanctions or boycotts, it will be a serious deterrent to the speech in Zimbabwe. Freedom of speech. This will make, it will deter you, Eustace. This bill is more like clap our hands while corruption erodes the nation. Exactly. Because this law, Eustace, you be clapping hands. This is the law. If you say, to 10 years jail, and you're not allowed to say that. You'll be clapping hands whilst and not only will it be crime to attend a meeting in order to plan or implement sanctions, but it will also be a crime if the meeting merely considers them. Hanzi vakangofila kuti meeting yawaenda yoyi why waenda 10 years in jail. So legal experts said the bill is very ambiguously worded, complicated and difficult to grasp. Hanzi mtemo wacho is very difficult to grasp. And it's very difficult to understand it. The way this mtemo is worded is so complicated. This is according to legal experts. Therefore, it's susceptible to misunderstanding. The law enforcement officials would probably interpret it broadly to fit their agenda. So ZANU-PF made this bill, made this law complicated, especially on how it is interpreted. The interpretation is ambiguous. The wording is ambiguous. It is a very difficult law to grasp. So the law enforcement agents, the way I understand how this bill should be applied, this is what I will do. That means mtemo uchaiswa pa mazvake kuti ada kuita zvake, because nobody really grasp it, nobody really comprehend it, nobody really understand it. Saka zvinge zvakuti ari kukusunga iye mupurisa ari kukusunga kana angofila kuti iwewe ndakuona wakamira apa uchitaura zvakati, anogona kunhonga kasection kake imomo otokakanda otokuendesa kukoti otorwa 10 years andimona, because it's so ambiguous. So a lot of people will understand it, and when they misunderstand it, then zvatoshata angove mazvake pa implementation. So another bill that awaits the president's signature is the Private Voluntary Organizations Amendment, the PVO bill, which seeks to monitor the operations of civic societies. The PVO bill seeks to quash dissenting voices. Barume, this is tyranny on steroids. Ndofuka mdhara uyu paipa monzo achitaura kuti anzi let's legalize mbanje. Yeah, the tyranny is on steroids, definitely. The mdhara is on steroid. So this is the law which has been passed. It's a draconian law, this patriotic bill, and it has been passed ahead of 2023 elections, which will make difficult for Zimbabweans to criticize their government. And once they fail to criticize their government, you really understand what will come. Zvinenge zvakakumirirai munenge maakuzviziva varume. Munenge maakuzviziva. So Parliament, where ZANU-PF has a majority of seats, passed this criminal law code amendment on Wednesday night, which also prohibits communication with the foreign government officials when the information may harm the country's positive image and integrity or reputation of a country. So if you talk of integrity of Zimbabwe, if you talk of the reputation of Zimbabwe, if you talk of positive image of Zimbabwe, as we stand today, since Zimbabwe had a coup in 2017 up to now, Zimbabwe has got no reputation to protect. But ipapo, Zimbabwe lacks integrity. Zimbabwe has got no positive image. The way elections were conducted in 2018, the way Zimbabwe government responded or reacted to people demonstrating on the 1st of August 2018, after the elections were allegedly rigged. The manner Zimbabwe government reacted, which led to killing of innocent civilians in Zimbabwe after ZNA was deployed to deal with the protesters. This has removed the integrity of Zimbabwe. This has created a negative image of that country. There is no reputation to protect at all. There is no rule of law in our country. If there is no rule of law, there is no reputation to protect. People of Zimbabwe are barred from issuing statements deemed unpatriotic. If you ask Mnangagwa what type of statements deemed unpatriotic, he has got no answer. If you ask Eustace right now, mpana wangu aripanapa, kuti statement yaunti ira unpatriotic ndeipi, he will never give you even one statement. He will never give you an answer. So they are saying attending meetings inside and outside Zimbabwe aimed at overthrowing the government. Because honestly, an opposition political party's mission and aims is to overthrow the government, is to remove the current government. So if you are an opposition member of parliament, you are criminalized for removing the government. Then what's the purpose of opposition? Zimbabwe is not a one-party state. It is a multi-party state where the opposition fight to remove the government. So the government must do the right thing so people can say, yes, if they continue to do wrong things, people would want that government removed. Adidimon, Mpana wangu, Eustace, can you tell me good statement one iwewe yaunonzi iri unpatriotic that can lead you to imprisonment ndeipi? Hapana kana one yaanoziva mufana wavo. And on because Zimbabwe, nobody lobbies for economic sanctions against that country. And not even one Zimbabwean since independence has ever lobbied for economic sanctions against Zimbabwe. Never. Never. I've never heard any Zimbabwean from the opposition or from where lobbying for economic sanctions. I only heard it before independence when Edison Zobo was lobbying for economic sanctions against anyone who rigs elections, against anyone who kills Zimbabweans because of an election. It was Edison Mdadirwa Zobo who lobbied for sanctions against anyone who rigs election. And from there, if ZANU-PF rigs elections, they will be slapped with economic sanctions. At the moment, the ZANU-PF has never been slapped with economic sanctions. Never. I've never heard Zimbabwe crying of economic sanctions. This is why you see they sell their minerals. Even Mangujga, the governor of the Reserve Bank, said our gold is not even on sanctions. We can sell it to America if we want. We can sell it to Britain if we want. But they choose to smuggle it rather than selling it. So Zimbabwe is not on economical sanctions. It is on targeted sanctions. Certain individuals who have spearheaded the killing of innocent civilians, like when chonzani chimudhara sakupwanya yakandani chidhara chiya cheku presidential guard chekudeploya masoja president vasingazvizive kuti presidential guard has been deployed to shoot and kill innocent protesting Zimbabweans. And on. So, ndo vanhu vanenge vachinzi vari unpatriotic. If you have got a commander of an army unit who is unpatriotic, that commander will deploy soldiers to go and shoot innocent civilians. That commander is unpatriotic. And more. Saka tiri kutaura tichiti penalties which include 20-year sentence. They said it depends on the severity of the crimes. While anyone planning an armed intervention would be sentenced to life imprisonment. And Zobo begged the military embargo on Smith regime, not economic sanctions. Military embargo. Video. I want you to listen to it. Could anyone who rigs elections must never be allowed to trade with the member states. That is an economic embargo. It's not a military embargo. I don't think you listened to the whole video. I've got the video if you want it. Where Zobo said, anyone who rigs elections must never be allowed to travel to member states and must never be allowed to trade with member states. Trading iyo ndo economic sanction yaitaurwa naZobo. I don't think if you understand that topic very well. Military embargo and economic sanctions, Zobo begged for them for anyone who rigs elections. Hiripo iyoyo video yacho, go and listen to it. I've got it. Kanochida. And Karadan play. Let me see if I Gana hiripo panapa. I'll play that video. Maweza itaurwa na Zobo. Umatererese. Let me look for this video. Pa YouTube. And about utererese maweza akataurwa na Zobo. Kuitira mangwana. Kana ndichishaura batai mazwi kuitira mangwana. Anzi Edison Mdadirwa Zobo begs for sanctions. I've got the video. No one will play. Yeah, I've got it. I can play it right now. I can play it right now. I want you to understand what 𝗍𝗶 was saying.
No intention to abandon his racist domination of the African people in Zimbabwe leaves us with no option but to intensify the armed struggle. While the Smith regime continues to employ various tactical maneuvers to subvert moves towards genuine independence, dangerous and unrealistic ideas are being thrown about by the United Kingdom government. These dangerous ideas include promises to lift economic sanctions on condition that Smith allowed little more token powers to his black collaborators. And little more token powers to his Smith allowed
Eustace.
Little more token powers to his black collaborators and plans to create a corridor through which an evacuation of white people could be mounted. Now our demands, Mr. Chairman. This committee should be sensitive to the new imperialist intrigues in the months ahead. The rigged elections should be denounced in advance because they have been rigged in advance. The United States Congress interference should be condemned. Sanctions should be intensified.
Sanctions should be intensified. This is 𝗍𝗶. Do you want me to replay here, Eustace, so that you really understand? My sanctions those were economic sanctions imposed on the Rhodesian government, Ian Smith, which is 𝗍𝗶 said sanctions should be intensified. I can replay it. This is 𝗍𝗶's yakangopfuura in passing, but usina kuteerera kuti 𝗍𝗶 akati chi. Let me play again.
Interference should be condemned. Sanctions should be intensified. And all members of the illegal regime, black and white, should be barred from entering any member state of the United Nations. As for the Patriotic Front, Mr. Chairman, we want to give your committee a pledge. We promise this committee that we will now go flat out to smash the Salisbury regime by escalating our armed struggle.
Wazvinzwa here, Eustace? Hapana pakambotaurwa military embargo.
And all members of the...
It's good that the videos are there. I know kuti inogona kuva yakakupfuura munin'ina. Inogona kuva yakakupfuura video yaZoboy. But I've played it. Now you have got an insight into what 𝗍𝗶 was saying. He never spoke about military embargoes here. He spoke about economic sanctions which were imposed on Ian Smith regime. I can help you understand economic sanctions against the economic sanctions against Ian Smith regime. Ian Smith regime. So I can help you understand them because I know the sanctions and Rhodesian economy. There are quite a lot of literature on internet which you can access. This one is a journal of modern African studies, which was published in 1969. This is page, probably it has got page 36. If you go on that journal to page 36, it says on 11 November 1965, the Rhodesian Front government of Mr. Ian Smith unilaterally declared Rhodesia to be independent of the residual jurisdiction of the British United Kingdom, or the United Kingdom. The British government understandably regarded UDI as illegal and unacceptable, and sought ways to terminate the rule of Ian Smith's part. In the absence of an internal uprising, the British government have eschewed the use of force, resorted to a policy of economic sanctions. I think you understand now. If you read the Journal of Modern Africa Studies, go to page 36. If you go to page 36, it reads that the British government understandably regarded UDI as illegal and unacceptable, and sought ways to terminate the rule of Ian Smith's part. In the absence of an internal uprising, the British government, having eschewed the use of force, resorted to a policy of economic sanctions. It's written, it's in black and white. It's in black and white. So these are the economic sanctions that 𝗍𝗶 was saying should be intensified. As now you are learning, keep reading. No, I'm not learning, I'm teaching you. References. We don't just come here and talk. We reference these things to say, if you want to read more about economic sanctions against Ian Smith, go and read this journal. And it on. Now, 𝗍𝗶, those economic sanctions must be intensified. Though there were military embargoes and on. Saka, you lack much knowledge. It's good to put a platform, you know, what this does. I appreciate. You should have appreciated this platform. A lot of information I've given you for free. Information I know is that you can't read. You don't know to my dots to connect, but I connect those dots for you to clearly see. Those were not military embargoes, but they were economic sanctions imposed by the British government. Akona zvandiri kuverenga research handisi ndini ndakanyora andiona Eustace. I did not write this. I was not there when 𝗍𝗶 made this video, but in my duty is to research for such information and make it easily available for your consumption, so that usazonyepere vanhu. Ndanzocinyepera vanhu panapa kuti those were military embargoes, which were not military embargoes. Those were economic sanctions, and I've got a document to support that. And on. I'm now an academic. I'm not allowed to references. No. What I say should have a reference. Reference. My bits and pieces to make them a block for you to understand. I give you the whole information so that you can understand. You will be telling them with an informed position. I know you were not informed. So now you are better informed. You can tell people, no, those 𝗍𝗶 should be intensified were not military embargoes, but were economic sanctions against the Rhodesian government. Both the British government did not want that government. Saka watoe a bit informed mnina. And if anyone who lies to people is no, you don't nyepera vanhu ka watonyepa panapa kudhara kuti those were military embargoes. Waona kuti watonyepa, you lied to the people. Ndakucorrecta, ndakuplayera video yaZobo achitaura kuti sanctions must be intensified. Ndikakuverengera kuti ma-sanctions up airifewa naZobo, ndakubatanzira bits and pieces of information ndobasa ise ndatokunyorera. Ukatonyora ise apa unotaura 100% nezvandakuudza izvo, woreferensa zvandakuudza izvo, unobuda nenyika. Ndo academics dzacho mnin'ina dzatinoswera tichiita mauniversity of Zimbabwe, mauniversity muyamwe. Saka you find that Citizens for Coalition Change, Member of Parliament or Legislator Joanna Mamombe said the bill seeks to undermine the fundamental principles of freedom of association and assembly, and it threatens to stifle free speech. This is dark chapter in our nation and the political forum. Honestly, it's a dark chapter on Zimbabwe and on. Saka by now wakunyatsonzwisisa munin'ina wangu Eustace ndokudira kuti unonzwisisa uri appreciative. I think by now wakunzwisisa, because if you read the chronicle of Zimbabwe, it goes on to say many Western countries led by Britain and the United States imposed illegal economic sanctions on Zimbabwe, which is not true. And my sanctions are imposed on Zimbabwe. These are not economic sanctions. It's not true. Kana goridhe redu isusu richikwanisa kutengeswa kuAmerica nekuBritain. How are they economic sanctions? Taitakura isusu madiamonds achinotengeswa muLondon. Anozoema economic sanctions. Zimbabwe can trade with Britain. Pasina munandara di motikari dzeZimbabwe dzeBritain dziri kupinda muZimbabwe dziri kutengwa muno. Vana sewiki neo vari kuuya vachitenga motikari muno. If dai tiri mama economic sanctions, I don't think 𝗣𝗿𝗁 would come and buy a car from United Kingdom and take it to Zimbabwe. I don't think so. I don't think so. And handifunge kuti 𝗣𝗁 aiyazotenga motikari muno. Is tiri pama economic sanctions. I don't think so. I don't think waiti ukafamba masupermarket muno maavocado akanzi from Zimbabwe nebeans atiri kuona nemaruva akanzi from Zimbabwe kuti waizvowana muno if we were tasingabvumirwe kutrade neBritain. So this is a lie. Androona yekuti ma-Western countries nana Britain neAmerica vakaisa Zimbabwe pama economic sanctions. No, these are not economic sanctions. Because ukatarisa inini mari yaMnangagwa has got nothing to do with Zimbabwe. Mari yaGrace Mugabe kana kanzi yafrizwa mubank, it's her personal money. yaMnangagwa, it's his personal money. Inenge yakafrizwa mabank eku-UK. Hanzi yudasiyana na Eustace kondini nyaya lo nyaya yacho kamukoma semu toda kuti adzidze. Handimaona panapa it's a platform of learning. Panodzidzwa panapa. So you see that if you see Zimbabwe newspapers and Zimbabwe people, those wana siza zvai ndana siza zvai vanonyora izvi vari kutaura kuti Zimbabwe iri pama under economic sanctions United States neBritain, which is not true. US haina kuisa Zimbabwe pama economic sanctions. Britain haina kuisa Zimbabwe pama economic sanctions. But there are certain individuals vakafrizirwa nezvikambani zvavo. Kuti kambani, over chikambani chasakunda, we all know kuti zvikambani zvatagwirei ndezva Emerson Mnangagwa. Saka zvikafrizwa zvakatoonekwa kunzi yari kubasta ma-sanctions ndobva hanzi aiwa zvikambani zvakotozvifriza futi. Handimaona vanhu vakuchema tagwirei haasi Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa haasi Zimbabwe. Platinum yedu isusu inoswera ichirova ndege every day, maship akazara neplatform achipinda muUK, achipinda kunana China, achipinda kunana USA kunotengeswa. We are not on embargo, economic sanctions, no. But we have got certain nhubu. Tine nhundira mtsime. Tine nhubu. Tine zvimadzvatsvatsva. Zvikumkumu. Zvisingagute ropa. Ndo zvakatorwa zvikanzi iwewe hatikudi kuUK. Iwewe hatikudi kuAmerica. Kana une kambani yako hatidi zvinhu zvayo. Tsvaga kwaunotengesera kambani yako iwewe. Which is not a Zimbabwean company. It's a personal company. Yekuti vakaita mari dzaonesa muhomwe dya nevana wavo. It doesn't benefit the country in any way. And more. So the sanctions mantra zvinotaurwa nezanu kunyepa hakuna zvakadaro. So the sanctions which have been renewed annually have damaged the country's economy. Saka wada kwabvunza kuti ma-sanctions amuri kutaura iwayo kuti Mnangagwa, mari yaMnangagwa yakavharwa muaccount make kana kuti yaSakunda yakavharwa muaccount make, how does that man affect our economy? How does Mnangagwa kuzi akanziwo auye kuno kuUK affect our economy? And so although the country is now using its own growing resources, but development could be speeded up with the standard access to balance of payment, support and affordable loans from international financial institutions. My international financial institutions, dana IMF, Zimbabwe yaenda chinokwereta mari vachigowana mari dzacho chonzani ana china masa vachigowana mari dzichienda muaccounts avo mari dzenyika. We never benefited anything from IMF loans. Hatina chatakawana. Nanhasi Zimbabwe dzine zvikwereti. Kwavabvunza kuti mari dzacho dzakaenda kupi? IMF funds dzaikweretwa nana Mugabe dzakaenda kupi? Ndo mari dzavaibhizi kuvaka mahotera, vachivaka zvipatara unana Singapore, vachivaka mahotera unana Dubai, vachivaka mamansion vana vaGrace Mugabe vachivaka mamansion unana Dubai. They can't build those mansions in Zimbabwe. Imari dze-IMF dzese. But now dzakupigwa patiri isusu maZimbabweans kunzibhadharai mari dzavakagowana. You understand? Saka idzi nyaya dzekunzi economic sanctions dai vambotinyararira vambosiyana nazvo. By now, I think Zimbabweans have now understood this patriotic bill. Mtemo wakaiswa this draconian patriotic bill kuti chinokuaffecta papi andimona. Ukada kwabvunza mazano hanzi takakopa Logan Act yekuAmerica yakaiswa 1755 1770 something ndoba yakaiswa about how many years ago, but 300 years ago, I think. Pakaiswa mtemo wekuAmerica 300 years ago ndo mtemo wakutorwa wakuiswa neZimbabwe mu21st century. Mtemo 300 years ago kuAmerica. Since waiswa mtemo hauna kubva kana ani kuAmerica. Ndo wakukopwa neZimbabwe. It's a copy and paste yakatwa neZimbabwe. Ukavabvunza hanzi America inawo mtemo iwoyo. Andibona. Saka ndiri kutaura kuti come 2023 we don't need zvanhu zvisingarizine zvakadaro. Zvinokuudza kuti mtemo iwoyo America inawo. Saka let's copy and paste touita wedu. Azvishande. Zimbabwe is a sovereign country. Mitemo inoiswa muZimbabwe inofanira kuenderana nemutemo nevanhu vemo. Vanhu vemo vari kudei vanhu vemuZimbabwe. Kwete nekuti hanzi mutemo wakaiswa 1779 kuAmerica, saka ngatiuisewo munyika medu. As Raisa is my law and it affects only people like yourself, not every Zimbabwean. No problem. Tine vanhu vasingazive in our country, those people who want to govern, but they don't know that they don't know. We've got a serious issue, ladies and gentlemen, in our country. So the problem that we must do, 12:10, but I need to round up what I've been talking about here. That Zimbabwe is going for general election on the Logan Act is on former and the statesman. Yeah. The ZANU-PF government, they copy and pasted it. And they said, boss, America has got it, so we must have it. Now, what happens about my sanctions? They want to copy American things. What happens about my sanctions my way? You see, even currency, varukushandisa US dollar, but varuchema my sanctions. Do you know that if we were under economic sanctions from America, they were not going to allow us to use their currency? But we use their currency. We spoke about the re-engagement. We wanted to re-engage the British. We wanted to re-engage the Americans. But we still cry of sanctions. You understand? This will make us try to search for personal meaning. Trying to search for personal meaning as Zimbabweans. What are we as Zimbabweans? I know it's a very difficult process, but it usually results in a very healthy and necessary awakening, which will allow you and me to understand what we are as Zimbabweans. Let's search for personal meaning, because definitely we are not Americans. We are black Zimbabweans. We don't need the American dollar to trade in our country. We are a different country. We are not America. But the problem that we don't have personal meaning. We don't know who we are. This is why we even, as Maswera say, my brother, Gogo Biden, that's where Maswera say, Gogo, Ujiri say. So, Our leaders, they need to work regularly on discovering personal meaning that we are Zimbabweans. If we are Zimbabweans, things that we should have must be Zimbabwean things. The gold we have is Zimbabwean gold. The people we have are Zimbabweans. So our money must be Zimbabwean currency. And as I'm talking about, we cry about sanctions. You go to Zimbabwe, they charge bread on US dollar. You ask them, are we a province of United States? Boss smellers, you wonder what type of people are these? They cry of sanctions, but they want to use US dollar. You go to Zimbabwe, you ask them, are we a province of US dollar? United States? No. Right. Why can't they pay our civil servants in US dollar? Because we trade in US dollar in our country. But they go on to pay civil servants on RTGS. And those stupid people who bounce and say, Trukora Mari. $1 now is equivalent to 4,000. Gona civil servant that you pay 7,000 RTGS. Urukora $2 a month. Imagine Porisha Njombo, aina uniform, uchenda kubaza, unomira pa parade, ukatakura pfuti. Uchihora $2 a month. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, Zimbabweans. Let's wake up. Our leaders must regularly work on this. They must regularly work on this. Discover the personal meaning. What is Zimbabwe? This is why I told you, sirs, I'm the most patriotic Zimbabwean. Because I talk about Zimbabwe, how to develop Zimbabwe. Our leaders, they never sit down to discover the personal values of Zimbabweans. They never did that. They never did that. They should search for personal meaning. Chinonzi Zimbabwe chi. Anonzi Zimbabwean chi. Do we need to pass this patriotic bill act against Zimbabwe? What does that benefit Zimbabwe? And the process is not difficult for them to sit down and discover personal meaning of our country. This is what we call leadership. Let's vote Nelson Chamisa. I have been honest from the word go that at this juncture, Zimbabweans need a leader who will sit down, who will reflect on what Zimbabwe is, to find the personal meaning of the country. Because you cannot go and just impose chimtemo, what this is patriotic act, chimtemo nti, woroverera. Uruguisira ani, mtemo yoyo. Uruguisira muna rukuora Zim dollar. Uruguisira muna rukuora American dollar. Are we a province of America? So we need a government that solidifies a commitment to personal discovery, to make sure that we have a Zimbabwe for Zimbabweans. We have Zimbabwe money. Atifana kutakura ma bond paper. Kuzaza bond masaga ne masaga unotenga newspaper in our country. We must have a government that heighten the creativity to ensure that Zimbabwe becomes Zimbabwe. It becomes a country for Zimbabweans. And whatever we do, we must be proud of Zimbabweans. You talk of protection of integrity and reputation of a country, whilst you don't know what Zimbabwe is, what a Zimbabwean is. And when I say draconian rule, you will never discover the passion of Zimbabweans when you put such rules and such laws. One radio station, one TV station. Because Zimbabweans will never be creative. They will never be creative. Zimbabweans, you will never rediscover their passion. What is the passion for these Zimbabweans? When you put draconian laws, draconian rules against such type of people, you go to them, you ask for their votes to vote you. You go into parliament, Saka, we have got to change a government. The government that we have does not value you. And because what we need to do is we need a government that first recalibrate itself. A government that focuses on the goals that develop Zimbabwe. Because if you have got a government that does not focus on dreams of making Zimbabwe great, but it focuses on dreams of oppressing the people of Zimbabwe, so you cannot speak up, we don't have a government. This is why I was telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that whoever vote someone from ZANU-PF who approved this draconian law, that means you are not Zimbabwean. You cannot vote for someone who destroys your dreams. You are dreaming of a good Zimbabwe. You are dreaming of a better Zimbabwe. You are dreaming of goals that will make Zimbabwe great again. And someone in government comes and destroys those hopes, comes and destroys those dreams. This is why I've said for Zimbabwe government to make sure that that patriotic bill works, they must recalibrate themselves. Because if they don't do that, then there are no certain signals that they will succeed in whatever they do. Instead, they are triggering chaos in our country. They are trying to force the people to abandon their perspective, which will develop our country. Apana Zimbabwean asina Zimbabwe yakanaka yaanorota. Akuna. Ini ndakagara panapa ndinenge ndichifunga so kuti ndikaenda kumusha kwangu pakati panda bhoho, pakati pandoiswa shopu, pandoiswa tara yaka ndo Zimbabwe yatino dreamer tese. Kuti panofanira tara inobva pakati kusvika pakati, vanhu vanofanira kuwa na mabus transport haifani kunetsa, zvikunofanira zvigayo vanhu vasingafambi unogaisa kwakati. People must dream of a better Zimbabwe. Mori, that's very true. You do 1.100%. Yes, my brother. This is why we're saying we need leadership. We don't need to feel trapped in our country. As it stands, that patriotic bill is trapping Zimbabweans. Auvumiro kutaura chakashata chawaona. Ukachitaura unopuwa 10 years in jail. Ukachitaura unopuwa 20 years in jail. Currently, Zimbabweans, they feel trapped in their country. We are trapped in our country. This feeling of being trapped is in every Zimbabwean now. What will that result to? It will result to people being bored. Ukanaongoboyekana nenyika dakanzwa uyo mubhano ku South Africa achitaura zvikanzi, let's wait and see the influx of Zimbabweans now from that country you call Zimbabwe. If Zimbabweans fail to make proper decisions on 23rd of August, half of Zimbabweans today, about 7-point-something million people, will go in South Africa. Kuna Namibia kwakabviswa visa, vanhu vakupeka vachienda. Zimbabwe yasara less than 2 million people vanenge vari veZANU-PF who vote ZANU-PF. Because honestly, is feeling a life chai Zimbabweans, they've lost hope of survival. They've lost hope of their life. Upenyu chayo muZimbabwe, apasina muZimbabwean ane hope of proper life in our country. And he is not a president but a chief Mapanzure. I don't think he deserves to be a chief again. He must be Sabuku. Tikamuti chief tadaumenzanzana chief ndweni vakuru venyika. Ndara, he doesn't even deserve to be Sabuku. Ndosaka uri kuona even Mugabe chai akataura akati andina wokusiyira nyika ine kuti atonge. I better die munhu vote rangu chipoko ndinouya nchitonga ndiri chipoko. Because ED has compromised my personal ethics ake. He has compromised them. He's a compromised man. Remember when I was talking about him being released from prison and disappear, resurfaced in 1977, came back. Today is very happy dealing with Rhodesians, former Rhodesian Central Intelligence Organization operatives, former ministers in the Rhodesian regime. He's very happy to deal with them. And those Rhodesians, they will tell you that never trust a black man, never invest with a black man. So ED is a compromised character. He is a compromised character. His personality, his personal ethics are also compromised. And more. Even my war veterans, they've surrendered. They thought maybe if we remove Mugabe, tikamboisa Mdara uyu, kana ndio waida kuisa ere, kana waida sachiwenga ere, I don't know. But Mdara uyu is a compromised leader with ZANU. By now, I think ZANU-PF have discovered it. Could they've put a wrong man to be president? Now, he is a person who doesn't feel like himself. He doesn't feel like himself. He feels like he's being controlled by certain things. Do you know kuti mudhara uyu munhu yakungopushwa at 8 years, he can't even reason properly now. Munhu yakungopushwa nevafanhu vanongoida kumushandisa kuti vachiba, and he's not himself. So this is why now you feel Zimbabweans are trapped. They feel trapped in Zimbabwe, where you are not allowed to speak. I'm not freedom of speech. I'm not freedom of assembly. This is why now you see, kuti kana pasina rule of law, even the British have said no to Commonwealth readmittance. You cannot come back to Commonwealth. As ngoma yuda, magepe matraka nobatika here kuchando. Pakaipa melas, ndishakutaura ndakupedza nyaya dzematraxes, chataura takupedza. Animona. Because right now, government itself should have recognized symptoms of distress and take action before it's too late. But we have got a government that don't even recognize that the country is in distress. A government that do not concentrate. They are not concerned about effort, or they are not taking any effort to regulate whatever went wrong in our country. In fact, they keep tightening screws on wrong things to keep to grip on power. They want to keep their grip on power, tightening screws on wrong things. How can you pass a patriotic bill that makes sure Zimbabweans that makes sure freedom of speech, freedom of assembly is removed from Zimbabweans? Once you say anything against the government, you are sent 10 years in prison. They would rather release a rapist and incarcerate you for criticizing them. So, kana urim Zimbabwean, we are very unfortunate to be born in Zimbabweans. If you go down South Africa, hakuna zvimutemo izvozvo. Enda kuMozambique, Botswana, hakuna such zvimutemo izvozvo. It's very unfortunate that we were born under such oppressive people, under such people who do not regard us as human beings. To them, we are just subjects that can be tossed around. Pasina zvatokwanisa kuita. But as Zimbabweans, we have got quick solutions. Guys, come 2023, August 2023 must see implementation of these quick solutions. We must reestablish the meaning of Zimbabwe. We must reestablish the personal meaning of yourself and myself. Individuality. Muswa 23 August. Idei rekuti kana wakagara so usati waenda kunovhota, tanga wafunga kuti right, I'm going to make a crucial decision. This is an effective strategy that I'm going to implement today to make sure that we win this election. After winning that election, you praise yourself that I've made the correct decision. I've adjusted my life. The trajectory of your life, you can see it taking a different direction. And that trajectory will be proper for you. By the end of 5 years under Nelson Chamisa's government, you can tell that I've taken the correct trajectory of life. As it stands, we don't have a direction of life in Zimbabwe. Munhu wese unobvunga mupopoto, uchidhumana, uchikwira, uchidzika, uchiita sei, hapana proper life. You cannot plan life in Zimbabwe. Patakapinda basa isusu 1996, taitora ma-insurance policies awainzi after 10 years unopuwa 18,000 $. 18,000 $, waitenga imba dzaita kuma about 8,000 $, 9,000 $. Saka waitoti andotenga imba yangu after 10 years, ndoita sei, ndo extenda, ndowana pogara pakanaka. But guess what? After 10 years, akatenga imba ndiani under ma-bearer checks. In 2006, it was my 10th year pabasa. Tatane ma-bearer checks did. Aishika ma-billions. Ka 18,000 kawaka promise on insurance company kakanyura. So you cannot plan life in Zimbabwe. That is, we were on a wrong trajectory of life, an inappropriate trajectory of life. You can't plan life in Zimbabwe. And so what we want at the charity, Mlambo Murise. So what we want a government that will come and implement policies, remove all the patriotic bills, Allow Zimbabweans to be creative. Be criticized when you are wrong. When you are stealing, be criticized. You cannot incarcerate me for criticizing you because you are stealing. And more. Saga, what we are saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is we need a proper government that will ensure or that will respect Zimbabweans. Not a government that traps people in a patriotic bill. Ukangochedza chete jeri. Ongodai chete jeri. Hakuna government yakadaro. Even in Zambia hakuna mtemo yona. Mozambique hakuna. South Africa hakuna. Botswana hakuna. SADC hakuna. Anyone. So what we need to do is we are now not allowed to seek help from any other country. If you try to seek help from others, you'll be incarcerated for 20 years. So we better go it alone. I think you understand what I'm saying here. I don't want to go deep because tomorrow I'll be accused of promoting terrorism in Zimbabwe. Because what I'm telling you right now is we are not allowed to seek help of others. No. The government is saying, let's go it alone. You guys go it alone. So let's prefer to go it alone. You understand what I mean? If we are to go it alone, then we need to take action into our hands and confront the government. Because if we don't do that, they will continue tighten the screws on the wrong things, whilst they continue tightening their grip on power. And that will take us more 40 years to come. By that time, you and me, we will no longer be there. We will all be dead. Our children will be in abject poverty. You understand? So let's choose here, ladies and gentlemen, whether we want, as you da gunyaya, echinyanga yava pap. Asadan fonera, we will know with your pap, because I am still waiting for the solicitors to send me my paperwork for me to do the paperwork for his appeal. I'm ready for that. So far, I haven't received any communication from him, but if I receive any communication, then we will be in a position to know, and then I will give you feedback. So that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Sometimes when we talk about these issues, we need to consider where we are. Like what 𝗂𝗏-𝗁𝗀𝗃𝗏 is asking about Da Williams. He has been incarcerated by the British, accused of encouraging terrorism in Zimbabwe. But in actual fact, the terrorists are the government. And we have stated it time and again that Chinyanga was crying here watching his relatives being gunned down. Nkoma Sylvester, Ziri Senda, and Ilmon. Chinyanga cried whilst watching his relatives being gunned down in Zimbabwe. And as a result, he was incarcerated. He was put in prison by the British government for crying. Why are you crying? Why are you crying when people are being gunned down? Why are you telling them to fight back? And you are encouraging terrorism. You see, this is what Chinyanga was convicted about. And we are not scared to say it. We are not scared to say it. Because he is in prison. He's all over the news. His videos are there for people to see. You see? So, sometimes when we make these presentations, we need to be aware of where we are and where we really would like to be tomorrow. This is why we are now focusing on developing Zimbabwe. Because there is no place like home, guys. There is no place like home. Zimbabwe is the only country we call home. We don't have any other country we call home. So if we don't do what I'm telling you to do, let's take time out. Let's sit down. Let's reflect on what is happening in our country. And more. Let's figure out what we really want to do about Zimbabwe. Because we are lucky that we are holding elections in few weeks to come, 8 weeks to go. So this gives you a chance to reconnect with your aspirations. Every Zimbabwean aspires. As I've mentioned earlier on, that every Zimbabwean has got a dream. You have got a dream of a Zimbabwe that you want. And that dream, we all expect it to come true. And everything that is happening now should never be happening in our country. So what we are saying is, you and me, because of what is happening in Zimbabwe, we need to have an input, a say, as patriotic Zimbabweans. That patriotic bill is a risk on its own, but we need to take that risk. If we take that risk, we will be sure that we are going on a proper or appropriate trajectory of life to bring peace to our country, to make sure that Zimbabweans, when they go to vote, they vote peacefully. We assist them to make a decision, to say, look, you can never, don't allow yourself to be manipulated. Don't allow yourself to vote a political party that makes your life miserable. If you look at ZANU-PF has made your Zimbabweans' life miserable. This is why Zimbabweans feel trapped in that country now. Apana Zimbabwe na achada kugara Zimbabwe. And so in my own decision as a Zimbabwean, in my experience in that country, I have got nothing to regret. Totally nothing to regret. All the decisions that I made them willfully, to make sure that Zimbabwe can be a free country again. Every Zimbabwean must enjoy life in that country. We must not feel trapped in our own country. If we come to the United Kingdom as refugees, we get trapped. Ndashitaura na sekuru na sekuru zedu. Ndashitaura ngati, do you know, tina hama dziri Zimbabwe. Vazhinji hama dzedu dziri Zimbabwe akataura neni kuti shamwari ndikuda basa rekudriva ku UK. Ndikamutaurira kuti andina control yebasa rekudrive. Anenge aifunga ndiri munyepera. Mumwe munhu andari ndinoda kuuya kuzoita zveCOS, health, zveCare, support visas, wapi. Ukamutaura kuti I've got no knowledge of that, munhu anenge achifunga kuti ari kunyepera. So far my experience sekutaura kwandakaita last time, ndakati inini ndichipinda muno munyika munomu ndave neintention one, and that intention I still have that intention. Chandakainga munyika munomu pandichisvika 2008, ndakati first of all ndoda kuenda kuuniversity. Ndaenda kuuniversity ndoda kustudy forensic science. Ndaida kustudy forensic science because of investigations that must be done on political victims, people who were murdered by ZANU-PF back home. And I had that feeling good as soon as possible. If I go home, don't let us spearhead proper forensic investigation of people who were murdered by ZANU-PF. And those who killed them must be brought to book. People must be made to be accountable of everything that they have done. So my intention of studying forensic science when I came to this country was to go back home and spearhead investigations into the killings. Because no one is allowed to kill a person. And the ZANU-PF people must be aware that murder is never pardonable. If you commit murder today, you can still be convicted in 50 years to come. Because that crime is never pardonable. So don't ever think that if you committed a crime which tumane ZANU-PF uchiuraya vanhu wofunga kuti ucharegererwa. Haumbofa wakaregererwa. ZANU-PF, one way or the other, this ZANU-PF will be removed from power, and you will be made an example, so that vanhu vanenge vakuzotonga nyika ipapo vanenge vakuziva kuti usabvuma kutumwa kunouraya munhu. So this was my intention of studying forensic science. I wanted to go back home and initiate investigations in a proper way, investigations that are open. Kuti kana uriwo wakaponda munhu tikainvestigata tikabuda apa tikakusira docket rako uri kuenda kujeri, you'll be convicted. If there is still death sentence reigning, you'll be hanged because you committed murder, a crime which is never pardonable anyway. If you commit murder in Zimbabwe and you flee to UK, we will arrest you. You will still be arrested because in the United Kingdom, murder is never pardonable. If you go to America, murder is never pardonable. If you go to China, murder is never pardonable. So those people who killed on political reasons, you gain protection. You are just protected for a few years. If ZANU-PF loses today, be assured that you'll be prosecuted. So this is why I'm warning ZANU-PF people today, that those who are being used by ZANU-PF to go and kill political opponents, your time is up. ZANU-PF loses today, tomorrow you'll be in prison. You will be prosecuted. And that is not a secret. This is why you see all those guys who committed genocide in Rwanda, they are still being prosecuted. Because you cannot hide from murder. Murder is never pardonable. You will still be prosecuted. Get used by ZANU-PF, you still go to prison. Saka ndo pandakauya muno munyika muno ndakaema kuti madegree akada se forensic science anobatsira pa my investigations. This is why I had to do a forensic science degree, first degree, and I did a master's in forensic science. I wanted to do a doctorate in forensic science to make sure kana takuzoita my investigations why apana bias inenge iripo. Unenge uri governed nema laws of science to solve these criminal offenses. And more. Saka ndadaro madegree yangu ni now, I still read. If you look at those books, I still read a lot of material in forensic science. I still read a lot. I still keep my knowledge up to date about forensic science. And ndakaita degree rekudzidzisa. I went to do a degree teaching. I taught for almost a year or two in this country. Kusvika ndaona kuti azvienderane nenizvi. Zvekudzidzisa tuvana muno mutu, tukasiyana tuvana kuZimbabwe. Muno mutu unosarenda. Ndakati ndapinda mune klasi yechikoro chanandapiwa kunodzidzisawo. Klasi yese yakatanga kusimbwa kukanda mabhuku nepawindow akataka kuita noise. Apa ndine lesson re1 hour. Ndakaramba ndakapeta maoko so. Kusvika vazoita calm down vega. Ndikazodaidza headmaster wacho ndikamuti no, I can't work here. I'm sorry, I'm leaving. Chibva ndabva pachikoro ipapo. Saka hatudzidzisike tuwana muno munyika. Ndo zvakanipa ndisiye teaching. I've got a degree in teaching. But I said to myself, no, I can't use it in this country. And on. Ndobva ndadzoka ndikanoita degree renursing. Kuti aura chega hangu ndoende kunursing ndonoshanda kunursing. Ndora ndakaenda kunoita. Recently, ndakangofunga kuti last time ndine friend yangu iri kuCanada. Akatenga rori. Saka patakatora rori iroro, you can do CSI with police here. At the moment, boss, pandaimboita ma part-time ku police, ndaimboita ma part-time zvangu, but ndakazoda kuti better ndiite degree rekuti ndakuretire naro. Saka ndakanoita degree renursing, iro rekuretire iroro. Iro rekuretire naro. Kuti pane nshanda ndikangonzwa kuti apa todiwa nurse umboita temporary ndoenda, nomboita 2 weeks ndiripo, ndichipuwa tumari ndichiretire. Saka you see nyaya dzatiri kutaura idzodzo kuti zvatakaita zvazvekuretire. Andimona. Nyaya inoitika manje ndeyekuti ndakazoti takatenga rori man 7.5 ton. We struggled to find someone to drive that lorry. Andizoda kunyepa. Takastruggle kuwana munhu aiti drive rori roro kuti ribve panonzi paLafbra kuenda kuShiennesdorp rishipwe kuenda kuZimbabwe. We struggle to have a driver anodrive a lorry. This is ndopa ndakagara ndakabata license yangu. Unoziva ndakagara mumusi so ndakabata license yangu ndikati but kana ndakagara panapa inini handisi chirema at all. I can drive a bus, I can drive a lorry, I can drive chitima kana ndege ndokwanisa kuchaira. Ndikati why can't I upgrade my license? This is why ndakanoita license rekudrive trucks. Now I can safely say I can drive trucks now because I'm licensed to drive those trucks. Andimon. Kushupika kwandakaita kuti wane munhu aidrivera truck ipapo ndiko kanibona ndinoita license iroro. Now I've got that license to drive trucks. Kana ndikatenga lorry now I can go drive it. Kana ndikada kuriendesa kucherukwa munhu akatenga lorry rake akati Ashapiro inondorowa lorry rangu akati I can go drive that lorry because I've got the license to drive those lorries. Andimon. Zvasiyana nekudhara kwandandiri. Saka ndanzwa abhururu wangu akachitaura nyaya yekuti Ashapiro mabasa ekudrive matrucks akamira sei. To be honest, I don't want to lie. I know nothing about truck driving in this country. Ndakangotora license yangu chete kuti kana ndikavata chance kuti ndombotsvagawo basa rekudrive truck kana for a month ndichidrive truck pane ndiri paleave kunesini. Andona. But to be honest guys, I know nothing about truck driving in this country. But chandoziva nchekuti mabasa emunomu ekudrive matrucks muno munyika makasiyana nekuZimbabwe. Munomu hamuna unoziva ani pabasa. Mabasa avo kaenda pa Indeed unogugula unowawana mabasa. Ungoti truck driving ku UK unowawana mabasa ekudrive marori. Vanodrive magonyeti. Regai nditaure zvinhu zvine evidence zvanaitaurira mupana wangu Eustace. Tichitaurira tichidzidzisana kuti vanhu vanogoziva. Iri ndo UK license yangu iyi. Saka ukatasa UK license iyi ndikadai vanhu vanoona handiti rikuona apa inini I can drive my C class C1. I can drive C and C1. I am my rigid. I know my rigid, my trucks, my lorry, my 18 ton, my 7.5 ton. My lorry to dig it. I can drive any of them. No driver, motor kids no drive. Some do is no drive. I can drive motor no tow trailer. No license is. I know kuza. Zvakaindozwa bane date. Those are no chaira. Chandisa drive nini ibus. Andibvumi road driver bus. Andibvumi road driver ma articulated ma gonyeti ma hombe ma atikwa yayo. If I need to drive them, I need to go back kunita license road driver ma articulated. I can't drive them. But articulated lorry rare rikabviswa chimsoro. Chimsoro cheche ndokwanisa uchidrive is C class. Kana ndatowa trailer anchabvumi road drive. I need a license to tow that trailer. And in more. Saka, andina kuta license ndonoita gonyeti drive ayo. I need this license truck you driver my trucks because of experience and ndakaita last time. Takatambura kuwana munhu aiti drive la lorry. Ndosaka mona ndakanoita license iri. But to be honest guys, I don't know much about truck driving in this country. Chanongoziva ncheti ukada kuti uite truck driver munyika munomu you need to apply online ukaenda pa Indeed. Kunyange uri kuAfrica. Ndachitaura nasekuru nhasi dzaidriver matrucks kuSouth Africa. Ndachitaura nadzo. Ndikaziti kule problem iri munomu UK. Ukauya munomu une macourses aunofanirwa kuita. Kudhara waiti ukauya une class 2 yekuZimbabwe yekudriver matrucks. Vanga vasinga ukaiconverta to UK license vanga vasingakupe class 2 vaikupa class 4 yekudriver zvimotikari zvidiki izvi. Kuti uite class 2 waifanira kuenda futi upinde masystems avo uite theory yavo uite inonzi default checks uite inonzi CPC wozopuwa inonzi tachograph yekuti udrive matrucks. Zvine matheory test zvakaita kunge unofanira kunyora theory yavo woenda kuita practical test yavo woita CPC theory woita practical yemadefault check. Zvese zvonofanira kuzviita kuti vazokucertifya kuti chipinda muroad netruck wapasa license yako wapasa theory test yako. It's not easy. Saka vanhu, I don't know now vanhu vari kubva kuAfrica kuti zviri kumbofamba sei. This is why I am saying I have got no knowledge about what is happening. It's a different industry and sina kumbobva ndave interested to research kundoona kuti zvofamba sei. Saka kutorawo kwandakata license kwandakatozoziva kuti uzonzi waye truck driver une license iroro zvizvi zvaunofanirwa kuita, zvaunofanirwa kuita upasa upinda muroad. Driving yematrucks emuno muUK yakasiyana neyekuAfrica. South Africa unobva muPretoria kana muDurban wonzi uri kuenda kuCape Town 1000 2000 something kilometers, aurare uchifamba kusvika wasvika. Munomu ukangozviita wasungwa, you drive certain hours woresta. A day you are only allowed to drive 9 hours. 9 hours drive idzodzo unofanirwa kuva uri pa 60 miles an hour chete, kangopfuura ipapo wasungwa. Saka the way truck drivers do in Africa and the way truck drivers do in the UK, they are different. Munoma hapana paunomhanya more than 60 miles netruck. Hapana paucha driver more than 9 hours. Ukafamba ukabva panapa uchienda kuScotland, panokwana 9 hours dzako, panokwana 4.5 hours wozorora, wosimudzira worova dzimwe 4.5 hours. Padzinokwana ndopaunomira ipapo, ndopaunorara kusvika mangwana. Mangwana ukangosvika paunongologa tako rako chete, wakutorwa pasi 4.5 hours woresta, 4.5 hours worara. Saka kana kambani ichida kuti usvike nhasi inokupa madriver 2, mutruck munenge muri 2, kuti iwe ukadriver 9 hours dzako ukapedza worara, umwe driver uta take over udriver dzimwe 9 hours paanosvika kurara murara. Saka that is the way people drive in the UK. It's very different from Africa. Saka zvekuti inini kuti ndizoziva kuti mabasa acho anowanikwa sei, I have no idea. Mabasa emu-UK haasi kuti unozivana. You apply online, ukaenda pa Indeed unotsvaga pakanzi LGV driver. CE ndo maningirikina articulated trucks. Class 1 iyoya CE. C chimsoro chetruck chete kana kuti 7.5 tons. You can drive C class. C and C1. Saka CE kana uri articulated driver, uchi driver magonyeti una South Africa and Zimbabwe, una apply u driver class 1, LGV class 1 online. If they are happy never wakakuita interview wakapedza, they can facilitate for a visa. You can still come. Aya anonzi sponsored visas aya haasi eke-work chete. Ndema skills ari kushota kuUK kana vachita nama driver. You can get that sponsored visa. You can come drive those trucks here. Andimona. Saka vanhu vanongofunga kuti vanhu vanofanira kuya chete kuzoklina zvichembere chete. You can come drive those trucks kana kune shortage iriko. Visa rako company yakutora inofacilitate that visa. Wouya wokuisa matrainings avo wokuisa muroad. Saka vane rombo rakanaka vari kuuya, but ina handizive kuti zvofamba sei. It's very unfortunate. I cannot advise anyone on that unless ndakufanira kutotanga kuita research futi kuti zvinombofamba sei. Anditi maona. Saka I think CE we call them 18-wheeler. Ndo articulated aya, 18-wheeler aya. Kana uchida kuri driver iroro, unotoita theory yaro, unotoita practical yaro, vanotokutesta futa, vangokupe chete. Kana wakari driver ku South Africa for, bozi muno ndakaona musi ndakaenda, unoziva zvezvengobwabwaika kuti una VID ari kutarisa. Unoziva there is chinhu chinonzi kudriver uri monitored chinonetsa. Saka ndaidriver iye achinitarisa so, achitarisa speed yangu anenge achikutarisa, iwe ukamutarisa hana inobva yaround my way pamunhu kuita zvisizvo. But I was just confident with driving is driving. And all. Saka ndakapinda muroundabout. I can still remember my first era yandakaita. Ndakapinda muroundabout. Saka akanditi go straight ahead. Akanditi follow the road ahead. Saka nochinzi follow the road ahead kazhinji kacho inenge second exit. Saka pandakanopinda ndakapinda zvakanaka. Ndakunobuda exit andina kuindicate ndakufa ndingori straight ndakubuda ndichienda akabva aseka thanks boss akabva aseka akanditarisa so ndakabva ndati kuratidza kuti I've recognized my mistake but akanditi you have passed because your control, your observation waita error one yausina kuindicate paya but lucky kuti mamusina munhu wawakwanisa kureka kana kukuvadza but anyway you have passed. This is how I passed my test and now I can drive marori aya. Saka that is issue iripo mailers kana uchida kudrive matrucks kuno azvinense my brother, go online, gadzira CV yako, wenda pa online woverenga ma job specifications vari kuda chii, make your CV according to job specifications, poster any company because ndainzwa munhu aita handizo zvokushanda kuLeeds handidi kure. Ndakamubvunza ndikati baba makakwira ndege 27,000 miles kubva kuZimbabwe kuya kuno kwacho kuti unogara kuScotland uri kure. Uri kure nani? Already uri kure nekumba 27,000 miles. Wamu UK wakutaura kuti akugara kuLeeds akuite nendiri kure. Uri kure nani? Uri kure neLondon. London ni capital city yako Harare. Uri 27,000 miles away from Harare. Saka wana basa kuno kana kumachonyonyo kugoti kupi enda unoshanda. Bosi uri kudaiwe basa. Saka na uri kumusha uku ukana uchida kuapply mabasa driving aya unoenda pa Indeed woapply wotaura experience dzaunako andine makore akati kuno kundakaita makosa akati ako driving kuti uzodrive. Kana wauya kunoku vanogona kuona kuti safety ndeapi vokubatsira echi ndeapi vokubatsira. Azvimbonetsi zvezvo maZimbabwenzi takangwara zvikuru. Asana mbona muZimbabwe naiti ndakafoira theory test kana bosi kuno kwanokupa likelihood questions woverenga woenda nechikombiyuta chako 100 questions wonyora aumbofoiri. Inini kubva pandakatanga kunyora matheory edriving kubva ndiri kuZimbabwe kusvika muno muUK handisana mbofoira theory test yedriving. Kundagara pakombiyuta noita theory test nonzi wafoira. I've never. Ndichitanga first license yangu chandakatanga kupasa theory. Ndakazofoira practical musi wandakaenda ndakafoira zvakapusa because ndakaita about a year or so nchidrive. Yes, Ngoma, they are giving COS for truck drivers, butchery, fruits pickers. Yes, asi zvekewek chete zviri kuya zvakawanda. Thanks Chari. Andidi saka ukaapply ukaenda pa Indeed apply mabasa. Guys, ini ndofara maZimbabwenzi vakabuda vese vakauya kuUK vakazoshanda basa pane kuswera uchiisirwa zvimutemo zvana patriotic bill zvokuti haukosore ukangokosora wavhariro. Kana pane opportunity yekuuya vanokwanisa kuuya vachipiwa mavhisa, uyai mushande, come and work. Kana makunoku munovhurika pfungwa. Ndaitaura nemublazi wangu mwanga ari kuArmy mukanya ndoti mukanya mukoma wangu mutupo umwe chete aive kuArmy ranga riri zishefu muArmy. Pakauya kunoku akamboya achimbodedera takazotagara pasi takutaura zvikanzi but muningina ndikati indawa blazi zvikanzi why is it my British they don't talk about Zimbabwe, they don't care about Zimbabwe. Kona vakutaura nezveZimbabwe is a man once in a while but kuZimbabwe every day tingati chikoimba pa British akaipa. Ndikati makuzviona here mudhara zvikanzi no I'm discovering something now. Ukabuda kwaunenge uri trapped muZimbabwe muya ukapinda kunana UK kuno unovhurika pfungwa, you start seeing things differently. You understand? Saka vanhu vanenge vauya kuno kuwewe they are now starting seeing things differently. This is when you now appreciate why vanhu veZANU-PF vachitotizawo Zimbabwe vachiuya kuUK. You appreciate it because muno mune freedom. Makasiyana nekuZimbabwe where you are trapped. And more, they need to apply jobs with the COS overseas only certificate of sponsorship. Yes, vanema certificate boss certificate of sponsorship rinopuwa company. Iwe ukaapply company rine certificate of sponsorship vanokutora kana vaine maskills aunda uri driver uri chii unouya unoshanda andimona. Saka zvazvinongoda chete kumeka sure kuti guys let's apply mabasa. Let's apply mabasa. Manesi ari kuuya, madoctors ari kuuya, madriver ari kuuya, vekeweke vari kuuya. andiona azvikutadzise kuapply azvidi mumwe munhu uri kuona kuti ezvinezvi tine 2 mazimbabweans vakasungwa muno mu-UK. They were convicted. Vaitengesa certificate of sponsorship vaitengesa 6,000 pounds. Iye anenge aripuwa ne300 pounds. Ozokuti iwe waita 600 pounds to and from ndege. Arifanira kumbokutorera 1,000 pounds kana 2,000 pounds. No. But uri kuona kuti they were abusing the system. Vakutengesa 6,000 pounds. Vanhu vazhinji vakauya muno kamubvunza ndakabhadhara 8,000. Guys, uri kubhadhara $8,000. 8,000 pounds. Kuya kuzoshanda basa rekuti hauwane 8,000 pounds yacho pagore. Azitumira president yeti. Wataura musekiwo regamira tona. Ndichataurira munhu akatengera yeti kuti atengere president. Because pane something cha president chiripo zvinozvi. Saka wataura mwana wamai. Wataura mira tono tingaiwana in time here. Thanks musekiwa thanks Jerry. Wataura zvakanaka apa. Rega ndione tingawana yeti in time here yakadai so. Kwete nditumire president yangu yandakapfeka iyo. Ndatumirwa na someone. Saka ndichasenda message kuna that person kuti shama yeti ya please tikudawo imwe ya president chamisa. Saka tikaona one yakadai for president nezvimwe zvawo zviri kuno. Pane someone andifonera akati andichakwanisa kuenda kuZimbabwe ndine something a president ya president. Apa amene ndoita sei ndichaona kana pane munhu ari kuenda kuZimbabwe guys. As my brothers are full qualified chartered accountant, but they got COs for caregiver. After 3 years, you can switch to your jobs. Yes, thank you, Richard. Kana pane munhu ari kuenda kuZimbabwe, ndoda munhu we-CCC. Heti haireme guys, haireme atuma grams shoma ne-top. Pane munhu akaona president wakapfeka top yeManchester United. Vakati aiwa top iyi yakudhara. Andikade kuti president wangu wapfeke top yeManchester United yakudhara. Ndobva aenda kuManchester United ndobva anotenga original top yapresident. Ndokudira kuteera. Thanks ngoma jeni. Saka takuto facilitate one hit yakadai for president ne top yawo. Vakatengerwa top yakanaka yeManchester United ndati akuna mwana wakakomborerwa kumana. Do you know jezi reManchester United original roswa uma 70-80 pounds? Someone went to buy it as a present to our president. Hanzi randakaona vakapfeka is an old one. I don't want him to wait. Hanzi dai andiripo pandinoapa iri jezi noti chini paidhara reti pise pamoto. Musare makapfeka nyowani kana muchida rimwe futi unza futi rimwe racho nyowani racho ndikati kuna vanhu vakakomborerwa naMwari vane chipo chekupa. Saka ngatitende handisutaura zita rake. But ndakutsvaga vanhu vari kuenda kuZimbabwe, those who are willing to help us. Ndichataura nemufesi wangu anitumira yeti kuti tikuda imwe one yakadai so yapresident. Yangu iyi ndichaenda ndichatsvaga something chekuisa pana CCC kuti vanhu vaone kuti ndiso vanhu vacho andiri mona. So ladies and gentlemen, what we are talking about could be very difficult, can be quite difficult. Kuvanhu vari kumba kune vanhu vari kuZimbabwe vazhinji especially vangu chaiyo hama dzangu inini ndine shungu dzekuti masisters angu vazukuru vangu vaning'ina vangu ndingoonawo kana vaviri vatatu vanouya kuzoshandawo munomu yokuti you won't be a breadwinner. Unenge kuti mukoma taitwa nhamo ngatibatsirane, muning'ina taitwa nhamo ngatibatsirane, kana muchibata pamwe chete zvinoreruka. But ndiri kushayawo mukana wekuti vanhu ndounzawo sei kana pano vanogona kundibatsira kuti nditorewo 1 or 2 mondiudzawo kuti ashepad kana une hanzvadzi yako yakadai totorewo 1 kana 2 wombouya vakubatsirewo. Handiti mwana ndochitodawo help, ndochitodawo kubatsirwa. Saka nyaya iri kunetsa yatiri kutaura panapa ndeyekuti nyika yeZimbabwe haichagariki. We don't have any reputation to protect for that country. We have got no integrity to protect for that country. Apana pauchanzi you are damaging that country. That country damaged itself because of misgovernance. The people who have been ruling that country did not care about their attitude and behavior to the international community. After they did all the obscenities in that country, did all the offenses in that country, they now trying to cry kuti hey tiri kuvictimizwa, hey tiri kuti vasei nezvinhu zvavakaita vega. Hapana munhu akambotuma ZANU-PF kuti endai munopisa misha yevanhu, endai munorova vanhu, endai munouraya vanhu, endai munotaura vanhu ranzi hatigoni kunyora. They were destroying the reputation of the country. Zimbabwe ezi madoctors anoudzwa kunzi ukapinda muballot box inotaura ugone kunyora. Doctor munhu anodiagonisa munhu urwere orapa munhu upora ari kunzi inotaura ugone kunyora, unoti assisted vote neZANU-PF. Andimona, they destroyed the reputation of that country. They destroyed the integrity of that country, to the extent that that country can no longer guarantee financial security nyika yayo. Even currency chaicha hatisisina. Tirikushandisa zvinonzi ma-RTGS, unoshaziva kuti chii ichocho. Kana wakuda currency unotanga kuenda kubasa ukaora RTGS wonotenga mari wozotenga chikafu. Imagine uri munyika mako muZimbabwe uruda kutenga 20 kg yehufu, ukashanda uchahora RTGS, woenda kublack market kunotsvaga US dollar wotenga mari wozoenda unotenga hufu. Hakuna nyika yakadaro, hakuna nyika yakadaro. Then ubvanzi you are tarnishing the image of the country ukataura kuti hakuna nyika yakadaro. It's 10 years in prison. Zvandatotaura izvo ndikatobatwa ndotoenda kujeri 10 years. Kuti magadhijeri nemapurisa nemasoja vari kushanda wohora RTGS, arikuda kutenga boots mubhata, anomboenda kumarket wonotsvaga mari wonotenga mari yawaishanda yaisi mari ma-RTGS, wonotenga mari US dollar woya wotenga boots. Ukahora RTGS wonotenga mari woenda wonotenga chingwa. Hakuna nyika yakadaro, hakuna nyika. Ndosaka ndiri kutaura kuti musi wa 23 August gore raunofanirwa kufunga kuti ndicharamba here ndichienda kubasa ndohora mari ndonotenga mari ndozotenga chikafu, kana kuti ndakuvhotera hurumende yekuti ndikaenda kubasa ndohora mari ndikumuka kubasa ndoenda musitoro unotenga chikafu, kwete kuenda kumarket unotsvaga mari uzoenda musitoro unotenga chikafu. Saka zvaakuda munhu anorizina, zvaakuda munhu anofunga. Because what I've said here is all prohibitive. It is often prohibitive. Because how can you work and go buy money, then buy food? It needs proper reasoning. Ashimwene?
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I just need to step the people.
All right. Anditi maona varume. Ndo nyaya yatikusana nawo mukomajeri. So I really understand that for some Zimbabweans, abandoning or leaving our country to come to the diaspora is a great sacrifice. But our country, our leadership, our government doesn't see it. They don't see it. That we have abandoned our people. They don't see it. That we have left our countries. We fled that persecution from our country. To them, they don't see it. Ukaenda pa Twitter right now, pane Twitter iri kutanzi mwana waitaidza, which was opened in October last year. Akutaura kuti baba vangu vakaurawa naChamisa. ZANU-PF are insensitive. They abducted Itai Dzamara, killed him, deposed his body. I don't know where they put the body. They go on now to create accounts that torment Itai Dzamara's children. To say, do you know when Itai Dzamara was abducted and disappeared, he had a placard that Mugabe failed, step down. And why would opposition go and abduct him and kill him? It doesn't make sense. So they are tormenting Itai Dzamara's family right now, creating those fake Twitter accounts. I've told people on Twitter that why can't you report this Twitter handle? You abduct the father. You kill the father. The father's body or remains have never been seen. The family are struggling. They want the dead body. Give them the dead father. And you go on to create a Twitter account. They are so insensitive, ZANU-PF people. Come 2023 elections, you guys must reason. Why should we vote such type of people? They are going to do the same to you. Abduct you and you disappear. They create fake accounts. They torment your family. So what do we need to do? Let's remove ZANU-PF. 2023, you have got a chance. You have got 1x to put on a ballot paper. What we need, remember I was talking about the executive branch of government. We need a president. MP, but what we need is the big office to make changes. So you've got 1x for President Nelson Chamisa. You don't put 2x, you put 1 on Chamisa. That's it. Forget about Mnangagwa and his minions. And it's not easy for us to come to diaspora. It's a great sacrifice for us to be here, guys. I wish Zimbabweans Kumba know what we are going through in the UK. You won't like it. Isus West, Isus Tunana Northeast England, kuna racism baba inoridza muridzo. Yekuti wakagara so wabuda pabasa unoti I think home is best. Kudzokera kuZimbabwe undoona sekwakanaka than kushanda under those conditions. Ma conditions andiri kutaura, let me give you examples. Unenge uri pabasa iwewe night duty. Unoona murungu wakangogara pasi kana ukabata foni yako pane pamboti undodoza. Mangwana unenge uri office kwa manager watengeswa nemurungu kunzi aikotsira pabasa. Mangwana unenge uri office kwa manager uchinzi hanzi haana kuvhara dhore papo. Munhu uri kushanda naye, your team member, anofana kuti akakuona uchikwakukotsira anofana kukumutsa, anonokutengesa, anokutora picture unopa manager kuti ona yanga akarara. Panze datari inonovhara door, hauvhare door. Anokutengesa unenge haana kuita zvakati. But is your team member. Bosi varungu vazhinji vatoshanda navo munomu. Vazhinji havana kuenda kuchikoro. Ndakamboshanda pane imwe kambani, ndogara ndichitaurira vanhu. Ndakamboshanda pane imwe kambani inobika mamakwezi, macrisps aya. Pave nemumwe mudhara ainzi Steven, ini ndonzi Shepherd. Zita rake rotanga na S, rangu rotanga na S. Aiti akauya kuseni takupinda paipai. Aikopa zita rangu, ndikatanga kupinda inini aikopa zita rangu pazasi. Saka ndakazoti mumwe musi ndakuita sign, ndichita sign out every day, ndaiona pana ana 2 ana Shepherd. Saka ndakazomutaimira manje ndikaona kuti mudhara ndiye anonyora zita rangu. Haagone kana kutoverenga anonyora, anongonyora, kunyora andikopa zita rangu inini kuti Shepherd. Otosaina otopinda kubasa. Panenge pana ana Shepherd 2. Chinozosiyana isignature. Andiona. Saka mamwe ma conditions atoshanda tiri muna UK munomu. Ma conditions ekuti unofuka ndikumba kuri nani. Wesi still kanoshanda nezvanhu zvisina kuenda. Mune varungu vasina kuenda kuchikoro munomu. Vasina kutombodzidza zvachose. Mumwe ndakazomutaura kuti but why can't you go to school? Munomu hamuna age munomu. Do you know how old I am? Ndiri kuenda kuuniversity. Go to school, man. Unoda zvekusupervisa nekutonga, but skin cannot supervise. Ndakamutaurira iye murungu ndikati skin yako cannot supervise. It's not supervise your brain with your knowledge. Come on, get fuck off. Sorry guys for the F word. Andimona ndandagumbuka ipapo. Sorry for the F word guys. So my decisions atinoita ekusiya misha tichiuya kunyika dzakaita sedzinoidzi anorwadza. These are great decisions that we do. And most of them, like isusu takatiza nyika, we never planned to run away from Zimbabwe. We never planned. We found ourselves in a situation where you say, I can't stand it anymore. Let me leave. Let me run away with my life. And on. Now today they will be mocking you. They will be mocking my family. Look at what they are doing. They are mocking Itai Dzamara's family. They abducted and killed him. Depose his remains to a unknown place. But they go on to mock Itai Dzamara's family. Guys, upenyi vhiri zvichadzokera mangwana izvi usazochema. Anditi mona. Saka what we are saying here is when we are going for election this 2023 in August, let's consider a leadership or an executive branch of government, PAMA programs, Zimbabwe develop. Let's not consider President Aruta Titan, good freedom of speech, akuna, freedom of assembly, akuna chaucha vumirwa kuita munyika. You feel trapped in your country. And let's be guided by our aspirations. Let's be guided by what we want. Explore your dreams, guys. There is nothing wrong. Remember, you've got one X, aunama X2. Once you ukapamnanga kwa X yako, chimeka sure kuti uchazofamba uchitaura wega in life. Unonga uchizvirowa uchizvituka kuti ndiri gudo remunhu, ndiri imbwa yemunhu. Because waisa X yako pasipo. You understand what I mean? So remember, on the 23rd of August 2023, on the harmonized election, you have got one X for President Chamisa, you've got one X for your 𝗏𝗶𝗁 member of parliament, you've got one X for your councillor. Saka unokoziva kuti councillor wako ane X yake, vaChamisa is president wane X yako, member of parliament wako ane X yake, and make it an educational policy. Educate other people, and offer them offer them free education like what I do, to make sure that those guys will know what they want to do. That will make you progress in life. You see, after elections, when we've got a different government, a different president, the trajectory of your life will be very different. You will see companies which are holding on to investing in Zimbabwe, they will still come, they'll decide, they'll come. We've got a lot of companies which want to do business in Zimbabwe, but they can't come because of the current regime. The current government has created an environment unfriendly for business. No one will come and invest in such an environment where there is no freedom of speech, where freedom of assembly is restricted, where a draconian law is passed by parliament. No one will come in such a country. And they will tell you that you should protect the integrity of Zimbabwe. Which integrity are they talking about when they pass draconian laws that will drive away investment? So the result of stupidity of our parliament is the result that we are witnessing today. That Zimbabwe will never see investment. Let's not make it throughout your lifetime. Kuti iwe wakaberekerwa kutambura. The risk yatakutora panapa yokuti tibvise ZANU-PF, I risk iri worth. Andimona, be a participant panapa. Pinda mu election. Because ZANU-PF kana ichinge yabviswa, it won't return again. I am telling you. You will see a different trajectory of your life. Upenyu wako unochinja. Upenyu wenyika unochinja. Ausi upenyu wachamisa uchachinja. Ayo, upenyu wako iwewe ndo uchachinja. Uchatanga kuona kuti ndinotoenda kubasa, ndotopuwa payslip. Ndotohorawo mari yekuti ndotoenda kumusha kunorima. Kumusha ndichirima, kubasa ndichienda nchiwana mari, kumusha nchiwana mari. Wakutoona kuti wakutoitawo mupfumi panyika. Vana vako vakutodyawo chingwa. Andona, a lot of things will change. A lot of things will change. The trajectory of your life will be different from the one that you are following under ZANU-PF government. Go to Zambia today. Mazambians, are in Club 9, Baba. Club 19, Club 9. They're enjoying life in Zambia. We don't know why vakachengeta HH vakamuviga vozotipa last minute achembera tachena ndebvu. Imagine HH akauya vari vafana madhara ari parunakirwa neupenyu. Zambia is becoming a first world country. Whilst isusu tichiringonetsana stone age people. Andimona. Saka, let's jump the ship. Kana wanga uri kuzanu. Jump the ship. Hakuna mna achakufikiri. Bosi kana uri muzanu-PF usina kupara mhosva, usina kuuraya munhu, usina kupisira munhu musha, usina mhosva yakapara, unotyei? Jump the ship. Don't worry about, hey, makazo, akusi kutengesa, urutengeserani. Chamisa is a Zimbabwean. You are a Zimbabwean. You are just changing leadership. Management, you know, change. Kana company is kashande shakanaka. And one. Let's change the government. Let's change the management of our country. And those leadership, you know, change new. You know, change new leadership. That is what matters. Saka, ndofunga ndataurisa guys. Ndataurisa. For tonight, kuti vanhu vanzwisise kuti zviri kufamba sei. Saka mukoma Jerry, I will just give a call now to the guy akatumira yeti kuti wane one for our president. Then pane zvimwewo zvapresident zvanga zvishinzi zvapo zvoda kuenda kuZimbabwe. Saka vari kuUK, those who vari kuenda kuZimbabwe titakurireyo zvapresident. Hazviremezvi hazvimbotori kana gram. Handii maona. Hey, hazviza chichaitika. So let me not disappoint vanhu. Tobva tangotsvaira dhirihora rembanje tobva tavhara naye. Dhirihora iro gara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje nogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora iro vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje vanogara mudhiriwo, mana vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje vanogara mudhiriwo, musatambe navo vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora vakomana, dhirihora rembanje vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora iro vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje vanogara mudhiriwo, vakomana vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje vanogara mudhiriwo, musatambe navo vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora rembanje vanogara mudhiriwo, dhirihora vakomana. Anobvanza kutapirirwa nayo. The benefits are quickly tangible of changing the government. Believe me. Believe me, guys. If you change the government, you are going to tell me that Shepherd was right. The benefits of changing that government, you will see them. They are tangible. And zvakuda iwe kuti ushande nesimba. We don't have conflict. Ndafonerwa nemwe mfana wangu. Ndafonerwa nemwe mfana wangu ari kuSouth Africa. Is a former soldier kuZimbabwe. Andifonera masikati akanditi mukoma ndanchikutsvagai. Ngati kwakanaka iri mwana wamai zvikanzi I wanted to have a word with you. Ndikati indawa. Saka hana yangu yamborova ndikati mfana uyu kana achitaura neni mazuva ese anotaura zvine respect. But nhasi ari kutaura kuti you want to have a word with me. Kwakanaka ere baba munini. Asi pane chakanganisika. Zvikanzi I've been following your I've been following your presentation for quite some time. Ndikati zvikanzi makaita one presentation yakandidisappoint. Ndikati inini ndiri munhu wenyama handikwanise kufadza munhu wese. Asi pandatadza nechida kuti vanhu vaite sei mopoinda kuti mukoma Yudha mapresentations enyu amakaita iyi haiite mwana wamai inodisappointa. Ndoziva kuti kana ndichinge ndakudisappointai ndogadzirisa. Saka mufana handitaurira nyaya yake akanditi inini I'm very much disappointed with you my brother. Ndikati ndawa zvikanzi makaita presentation yamakataura kuti kuCowdry Park Thokozani Kupe akaita candidate yeCCC. Makataura kuti imimi you are prepared kuti mutsvage mari vakomana imimi vari kuUK mutsvaga candidate yenyu yeCCC yamunoisa ikoko. That means tane two macandidates eCCC Cowdry Park. Zvikanzi no, that was wrong mukoma. Ndikati urudi wrong pachi considering what Thokozani Kupe did to us, recalling our members of parliament. Takarara takasvinura tokwa achidaidza hake members of parliament achizvikanda muparliament iyayo nepolitical party yake and so forth. Zvikanzi those are things of the past mukoma. Ndikati urureve zvikanzi regai ndikukumbirei zvakanaka kuti tanga tichikumbirisisa kuti kana vanhu ve-𝗀𝗲𝗃 vakati vanoda Thokozani Kupe its candidate ye-CCC, why can't we support her? Ndikadii ndau zvikanzi muri kuona kuti ZANU-PF irikuda kuti vhiringa nenyaya kudai ZANU-PF ichishandisa Thokozani Kupe kuti ave munhu wavo, havaimboisa candidate yavo yavanoziva kuti ndi-finance minister, munhu ari strong. Vaitsvaga a very weak candidate kuitira kuti MP wavo kana kuti Thokozani awine ari munhu wavo wavanoshandisa muparliament. Zvikanzi ipapo Thokozani Kupe akatadza, of course, but ndofunga akarealiza later kuti kutadza kwandakaita ndakatadzira vana veZimbabwe. Why can't I go and apologize to the people of Zimbabwe? Then I work semunhu akanga achishandira musangano kuchishandire change. Maybe Thokozani Kupe changed, but mukomana anichikumbirisisa kuti kunyangwe Thokozani Kupe akanzi is the candidate we-𝗀𝗲𝗃, why can't we give support semunhu wedu? Because munhu akarecognize ma-mistakes ake. Hanzi hapana munhu asingatadze mukoma. Imimi chaichai munotombotadza. Ndiri kutaurirai kuti makatadza musi wamakaita presentation yenyu yamakaita makatadza. Saka zvinhu zvekuti zvinhu zvatisingafanirwi kuve tichitadzirana, tiramba tichitadza. Saka ngatigadzirisei kuti kana vanhu ve-𝗀𝗲𝗃 vati vanoda Thokozani Kupe, isusu tiri anani kumuramba? Tiri anani? Because tinogona kumuramba vanhu vekumaThebeleland 𝗀𝗲𝗃 wacho vane reason yavanomudira ikoko. Zvikatarisai muno kuti kwakaiswa Mutuli-Ncube, andiona. Saka Mutuli-Ncube akuda a strong candidate. Haachadi tinoti vafana tikuuya kuti pakuda candidate chaiyo kuti inomira zvakasimba zvakaita saThokozani Kupe, anomobilize, anowina. Saka ndanzwa chichemo chako munin'ina. Tinenge chinzwa kuti vanhu vanenge vachitiwo kudii vanhu veku-𝗀𝗲𝗃. Kana vati ndiye wavanoda wacho, isusu tiri vanani kumuramba? She's a citizen of Zimbabwe. Isusu tiri ma-citizens as well. But I know we are bitter. Like inini zvangu, I don't like Thokozani Kupe. I'm bitter. Because ndikada kuona kuti 2018 election iyai ndanga ndisingarare ndichikambeni. Pungwe chitaura chikambeni achita se. All of a sudden, democracy destroyed by Kupe within that 5 years. 2018 to 2023, hatina mboita a viable parliament. Yanga ingori parliament full of conflicts. Anditi mona. Saka tine parliament yekuti vanhu vazhinji vakachema kuti nai ndo ma-elections here, ndo zvatiri kuvhotera here. Tine ma-leaders andange pwere. Anditi mona. Hatichada pwere mupolitics. Vamwe vanhu kuchena musoro chete mahara, but ipwere mukufunga. President Chamisa wakataurira Mnangagwa kuti mudhara uri pwere iwewe. And hataimboziva kuti pwere yakaita sewe kuti pwere dzinochena musoro. Pfungwa dzako hadzisi machuwadhi, uri pwere. Andiwa president vedu vakataura vaChamisa. Saka takuziva kuti tine pwere, but hatichadi pwere in politics. Ndopana akataura kuti she should learn kuti asatambe nevanhu futi. Because akatamba nevanhu futi vanhu vachapedzisira vamuuraya. Hatidi pwere mupolitics. Bvudzi rikachena ratidza kuti wakura. Ukachena bvudzi une pfungwa dzepwere, upenyu haunakidzi. Hatingarambe tichiramba tichishandiswa nepwere dzechidhara nepwere dzechichembere. Andimona. Saka ndakati kana achida kuve an extremely useful member of CCC, ngasiye upwere. Zvaaita nana Munzora vachimhanya vachienda nana Nunzani mudhara Mnangagwa vachinofidha hove uko. Upwere uya. Nokuti iwewe paunoona waane nzara woita pwere. Wakuda kuguta, wakuda kuya kuzochema kwatiri. Andimona. So we have got trusted colleagues vatinawo politics. Vekuti we can approach kuti tikuda kuti uite member of parliament kwakati tomufanda. But now tangomirira outcome yevanhu veku-𝗀𝗲𝗃 kuti vari kuti chi. Kana vati Thokozani Kupe hatina kodzero yekumuramba nokuti anenge asarudzwa nevanhu. So let's proceed nema-elections. Because Mutuli-Ncube andoda candidate ine nharo. Andimona. Andoda candidate ine nharo. Because imbavha mari dzavo dzavanobadze ndidzo vanenge vafamba vachiita sana sakupwanya nekugadzirira road yekumabvuku. Ndakati vanhu vekumabvuku kugadzirirwa road. Mari yenyu iri kubiwa yari kuba achidzi ngagadzire road, but musi wekuvhota munoziva candidate yenyu. andima dhiriwo raremba nje vanogara mudhiriwo vakomana vanogara mudhiriwo dhiriwo raremba nje vanogara mudhiriwo musatambe navo vanogara mudhiriwo. Good night, mosara zvakanaka naye. Night night.